Well, good evening, everybody. I would like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting at 6 o'clock. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll start off the roll call. Same direction as always.
Carl Granzo, present.
Mark Crouch, present.
Randy Thomas, present.
David Smith, present.
All right, great. So on tonight's agenda, we'll first start off with the public comment. Then we'll do, and when I say public comments, I mean comments about everything except for what we're talking tonight, which is mobile food. You want to have that separate for that period. Approval of the minutes. Then the food truck ordinance. Set the agenda. Staff and commission comments. All right, public comments. Okay, it's all about food trucks tonight. Mobile food units. Has everybody had the opportunity to approve the minutes? Or
I looked at the minutes, I can't see anything wrong with them.
David?
Fine.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve the minutes of February. February 1st, 2024.
I second them. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, unanimous. All right, so I'm going to go over the steps that we're at to go ahead and actually do a text change or a code change to the land ordinances, just so everybody knows where we're at in the process. First off is a workshop where we have kind of an informal talking about the code change that we want to do. When that's completed, what will happen at that point is we'll notify DCLD, and it will take 35 days after we notify them to actually have a hearing on that. The staff report also has to be written in that time period also. Then we have a hearing. What the hearing is just like the other hearings you might have attended or something like that, which is during like when we have somebody who wants a conditional use permit or something like that. We take testimony and we do findings of fact. And then if we do go ahead and approve the text changes, the next step is it will actually go to the city council. The city council will pretty much mirror the same process. And then if they approve it, then it becomes, law at that point. And it takes, I think, 45 days to get a final approval. Just so you know, so right now we're still in the stage of workshop. It's my intention tonight that we actually complete the changes necessary to move ahead with the next step, which is notifying DLCD and having a hearing on it. So at this point in time, I would like to have public comments. When we get done with public comments, then the commission will actually discuss the latest version and basically finalize it. So, any comments about the mobile food units at this time? Please. Go ahead and state your name.
Adam Hand from Lakeside. I think this discussion of food units was a good one, and I spent the last couple of days kind of looking at this packet, and I see that mobile food units are hardly even mentioned. There are a lot of other things that are highlighted yellow that are topics of discussion, but food trucks in this packet or mobile food units are barely even mentioned. So I
The
wonder,
section C is, and so what we have is special events. Now, what we were doing in this process was separating special events from food trucks because you don't want to have the same regulations for both. I mean, special events need to be something separate. So we have that, and then your whole mobile food unit discussion is actually section C, where it talks about temporary buildings, trailers, kiosks, mobile food units, and other structures. That whole section there is about that.
okay, I guess I've just read through there and I see where it could apply to that, but it really doesn't specify much at all. I don't know, it's just my thinking, it really doesn't touch on food
Right,
trucks specifically.
And you were at those meetings earlier.
I have been at those meetings and still confused. So
Okay.
I'll sit down.
I agree,
We can, Dave, did you want to say something?
I agree with you, Adam. I think the mobile food unit what we got shipped doesn't really cover a mobile food unit.
Okay. How do you figure that, David?
Well,
Because section C is. all
I
about
see
mobile-
temporary building, kiosk is, mobile food unit, egresses, ingresses, temporary land uses. Thought it was for a mobile food unit ordinance,
Okay,
which is real simple if you go by the health authority. I'm just curious. I agree with Adam. When I read it, the same thing.
okay, we'll have to go over this section in detail. This was stuff that was actually worked out before. You might not understand how. this thing-
I was present when you guys were doing this as sitting out there with Adam. So I was quite familiar with this at the time anyway. So,
So you don't understand how.
no, I understand how this works. I understand. And I agreed with the people back then when this was done in May and June, that a lot of this they didn't like. And I was here, I'm just saying, if you're saying I don't understand, I'm
Okay.
saying I understand because I was here present as a citizen and resident out there, listening to you guys with the mobile food unit.
Okay, we'll hold that discussion for when the commissioners are talking. Right now, we're taking public comments. Any more public comments?
Hang on, I got a little red thing here that says Shirley B would like to comment from afar. Which means I need to unmute Shirley B. Wow. Concept.
Hi there.
Good evening, Shirley.
Hello.
Good evening. Thank you all for working on this. I also agree with so many of the changes that have been discussed over the last 4 meetings, from the time limit of when the event permit needs to be applied for, contradicting what the codes are and what the office procedures are for event permits. The mobile food unit owners came in talking about how the restrictions about being on pavement, et cetera, were more restrictive than what the county health department had for mobile food units. And none of those changes that have been discussed over all those meetings have been applied into the draft whatsoever. So event planners and the business owners have come and spoken repeatedly at these numerous meetings, and none are taken into account for this draft. Not a single one. And so I feel that you're starting with the draft that you wanted after meeting where we all commented and gave proof and other examples of cities in our own county and their mobile food units, examples like the county fair and that, where mobile food units are not on pavement, how it would eliminate events from Wolfie Beach, etc. And nothing has been taken into account. I find it disheartening, and here we are. Meeting number 5 on the same topic with the same exact draft that we started with. We can do better. Let's work out a better plan than the one that we're starting with. I understand the next steps that need to be taken, but everyone says, oh, well, then we can appeal to council to get the changes. No, once council knows that it's gone through planning, they just pass it. None of them read it, or we don't even you can't even address all the issues in a 3-minute public comment. That's why we've all given so much of our time and efforts to come to every one of these meetings and public comment on the things that we felt needed serious changes or looking into. I have all the notes from all the previous meetings, and I'm happy to address all of the changes and send those in, or whatever we can do to move forward. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that.
okay, Carl.
If you have all the notes, then you should have the minutes from a year ago in June, where it says there was not a consensus among commissioners as to whether citing requirements should include the paid service or whether gravel should be accepted. The request was made of staff to see comparative requirements from other comparable jurisdictions. So there was nothing ever decided on what the citing was supposed to be. And I think same thing goes on to the generators.
The generators and also the Wolfie Beach incident would actually be an event,
That's
which would not be actually covered underneath mobile food units. But I do appreciate your comments, Shirley. We're not going to discount them or anything like that. There seems to be misunderstanding of the version.
No, there's no misunderstanding. Sorry, I didn't.
Okay. All right. Any other public comments? We'll move ahead. So, first off, I think we're going to have to take a little bit deeper dive into this so everybody understands what's going on. Public comments are stopped here, but everybody needs to understand what we're doing with the code here. First off, probably going to have to go through each piece of it so everybody understands. First off, we'll go into the definition of mobile food unit. Would you like to read that, David?
A mobile food unit or MFU is regulated and defined by the Oregon Health Authority, also defined by the Oregon Vehicle Code.
Wait a minute, David. We're talking about as far as our version here.
Oh. Any device propelled or powered by any means that is self-propelled or that can be pulled or pushed down a sidewalk, street, highway, or waterway on which food is prepared, processed, or converted, or which is used in selling and dispensing food to the ultimate consumer.
Converted to the, okay, good. Randy, you want to talk about transient business?
Okay, in the transient business, it's a business that operates in a city and has no fixed permanent location from which the business is conducted. Occupation of the location for, and we've yellowed out, 45 days, consecutive days, constitutes a permanent location. The transit business does not include service work where the operator drives to a particular premise in order to perform a specific service. Examples include, but are not limited to, landscapers, yard maintenance workers, plumbers, etc.
Good. So does everybody understand or have any questions about what a mobile food unit is? This would cover a food truck. Okay. Transient business is something that's only there for 45 days. Otherwise, we're talking about, being hooked up to something or more of a permanent type of business. Okay, temporary uses. Temporary uses are characterized by their short-term nature and by the fact that permanent residents are not made to the site. Temporary uses include, but are not limited to, construction trailers, leasing offices, temporary carnivals, fairs, mobile food units, parking lot sales, retail, warehouse sales, seasonal sales such as Christmas tree sales, vegetable stands, and similar uses. This code contains permit procedures for 3 types of temporary uses: special events, temporary sales offices, and temporary buildings, trailers, kiosks, and other structures. So the first one is special events. Now, this was the one that there was a big concern about as far as having a little bit more flexibility in the way that this is handled. This is the type of thing where, hey, we're going to have, a fair or an expo or something like that. And this is the type of thing that we're talking about as far as not restricting it to the same requirements as in section C that we get to, where it's a little bit more strict because this is somebody who's been going on our streets year round, whenever they want to type of thing. So, David, do you got it?
I do.
Already?
It would be nice that as we go through these, I know it's maybe a little time, but it seems like that's what we need, is to make sure that the people out here understand that we went through the transit part of the business, what it does, and the mobile home unit. So there is no further misunderstanding, that there is a total understanding. Yes, Mr. Hinton.
I had a question about this whole section, MC 155. Does this apply to activities on private property, or is this only to activities on public property?
This is both. This covers pretty much both of them. Special events are typically done on private, but if it's a regular business doing their regular business, and the highlighted area here where we're talking about permits, that's what everybody gets to decide on as far as, hey, do we consider this a special event or do we consider this regular business?
I appreciate that explanation. I asked because, like, when you get into section A, not to get ahead of you, but there are a few things that, for instance, which one, advertising?
Yeah,
Well,
and
it mentions if
we'll-
you
and we'll
advertise, you get a
discuss-
special permit, you know what I mean, or
We'll
if you.
discuss those.
Okay.
I think that you're talking about number E or something.
It's just a couple of those along the way that I feel like might conflict with private use.
Right, and that's why they're all in yellow. That's what we're gonna discuss.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. All right, good. So we're talking about special events now. City administrator shall approve with condition, or deny an application for a special event permit based on the following criterion. So a special event permit is required. Any temporary use that involves any of the following shall require a special permit. A gathering more than 150 or more people located in whole or in part on public property or the public right of way. What do you guys think about that? Are you okay with that? Carl,
As far as.
as far as defining a special event?
Yeah.
Okay. Gathering or an event that involves the intent of sales or services to the public outside the host's normal business hours, program, or activity. Adam?
And this is the first one that comes to mind for me. For instance, the Grover's on that section at the end of 8th Street that a lot of people consider the road, but it's a piece of private property, it's their parking lot. Does that mean that if he was to allow someone to pop up a vendor in his lot there, that needs a permit?
So if he was to put a vendor in there, is it a special event? Is it
Maybe not, maybe it's
advertised
just a
to the public?
Tuesday and a guy he knows that sells belt buckles says, hey Dave, can I pop up my 10x10 here on your private property and sell belt buckles?
Kind of like with the Million Lights of Lakeside, we have vendors down there. on
So-
the property.
So the Million Lights of Lakeside would actually be an event because you do advertise that. And that's another one that we'll actually talk about. But that would cover for everybody in that. I thought Adam was talking about just like you're having a vendor there.
Well, I'm trying to make it narrow it down, but in that case it applies this too, but if he was the, or Sire Power Sports has a parking lot. And they have a vendor, for instance, that says, hey, can I come down on Saturday and pop up a tent and sell shocks? Does he need a special permit to allow that guy to sell shocks on his private property?
I would think that, that would fall under section C.
That would be, well, we're talking about special events at this
Yeah,
point, so
right.
that would not be a special event.
Right, that would not be a special event, at least I don't think it would be a special.
I don't think so. Either.
But isn't that saying that? B is saying that if they intended to do sales or service to the public, then it would be.
It's a gathering or event with the intent or sales to the public outside the host's normal hours. Now, it wouldn't be outside of the normal hours, right?
Well, does it say hours or it says?
Say that.
Outside of the normal business, same thing. Yeah, not the exact thing.
So,
I mean, it's not Dave's normal business to sell belt buckles.
So then that wouldn't.
so
Mhm.
in the event, that's cool. Is it also the responsibility of that company or belt buckle guy that's on private property? Still require him to have a business license? The proper insurance and liability? In the event something happens on that, because of a belt buckle goes wrong, who does he sue? Does he sue Mr. Grover, or does he go after the guy who has the belts? So where is the liability in that as well? So I mean, if these are all informations that are good, instead of everybody saying, hey, I got a bunch of stuff, I got a bunch of crap snares, I'm gonna go down today, give them a sample of them for free, and I'm gonna open me up a booth right down there. Well, I mean, is that the kind of generality you're thinking of, Mr. Hand?
Well, I would think, if the property owner allows someone to do an activity on their property, then that becomes their responsibility.
And of course, but the liability can go on beyond that as well. I mean, they're gonna see if it's a business and it was permitted by a licensed. There's liabilities to those, and I know that personally, and from having that issue go on private property, my business for instance. And it's touch and go. I mean, if something happens, everything goes. Oh, you don't have enough money? I'll go to the next guy who has the deepest money. And it becomes a quagmire of just business. And I know that's the dirty part of this thought, other than the simplicity of just saying, hey, I want to use Mr. Grover's parking lot as permission, this kiosk to have belts for a Bellarama for 2 days.
Yeah, but it's also not a gathering of people, a kiosk out there selling belts.
So is it
not a
kind of like
gathering.
a little yard sale type thing where a guy just like a lemonade stand?
And how many people constitutes a gathering? Is that the 150 in the line above?
I think that's the party thing. I think if there's a gathering and if people came in for a party, but if you're having like a demonstration or something like that, and it's at his thing, I think it's a different thing at the gatherings.
All right,
What happens
you,
if
you
you,
can't put a number on everything.
No, I understand, but where do we stand on B? Like, do we think that?
Well, somebody else is asking a question.
The very first line on there is any temporary use that involves any of the following shall require a special event permit.
Correct.
Could we possibly think about having maybe multiple of those items to require an event? Requiring a special use permit, like, having, if your event or your deal has 2 of these checked off or 3 of these checked off, then you need a special use permit?
Well, we're going
Just
with,
individual. one.
to say, well, if two of them, that doesn't really work that way. It's either one of them or, because you can say, well, I want to have one special event, but I have to have two special events before it's a special event. That doesn't really,
Well, there's-
I mean, maybe I'm
there's so
misunderstanding you.
broad that almost anything can fall under these categories, so like these individual line A, line B, C.
Well, I wouldn't really consider them that broad, and there is always discretion. But broadness also, if there's a refinement to it, but broadness also means that it has flexibility both ways, so. Right?
Procedural request, sir.
Mhm.
Could I ask people to identify themselves when they speak? I
Sorry,
realize I'm the new kid on the block, but for the record, I need to write names. Thank you.
and we should go with the full procedure. Come on up to the podium and everything. So, could we get your name?
Yes, it's Paul Arnhem, Lakeside,
Okay. Lakeside resident or?
Lakeside resident.
Yeah, okay. Nice to meet you, Paul.
Nice to meet you.
But I agree with him that, one thing by itself doesn't necessarily mean that it's a special event. If you go down through that list, one item in that list doesn't qualify it as a special event.
Any temporary use that involves any of the following.
Yeah, that's what it's saying,
Right.
but I don't agree with that, that's right. I mean, why should a special event be some of these comments here? If it was by itself.
So could you clarify that a little bit?
That's me, see.
Yeah, give me an example. Because, and also remember, these items that we're talking about now, we don't necessarily have to have in there, and we can modify them to what would work for everyone.
I think that's the discussion we're trying to have.
Right.
Is maybe we modify B.
Well, for example, right away, section B of it. Gathering or an event that involves an intent of sales or services to the public. Outside the normal business hours. If somebody sets up if I go and take my gyms and I set up a booth someplace that somebody gives me permission to, that's not a special event.
Okay,
Because that's by myself. I don't have 150 people. I don't have all this other stuff.
so do we want to put a number on what's considered a gathering? Rob, do you have a comment? Rob Ward. I don't know that one, but I'm trying to keep with procedure.
Rob Ward, Lakeside. I think you might be missing the purpose of all this by looking at the details and missing the bigger picture. The only reason you have a permit for a special event at all is not to control what an event is or isn't. It's to put in place a process that ensures that a public happening that has the potential to create public safety impacts is properly reviewed and the public safety is protected and steps are taken to mitigate if necessary. So as you're looking through the list of things that constitute what is a special event that requires a permit, you should be looking to ask yourself the question, do these things capture events that might impact public safety in terms of impacts on traffic or the ability of people to get out of the area if something goes terribly bad, those kinds of things? Is there appropriate public hygiene in place for a really large event? Those are the kind of things that an event permit review is going to be looking at. And so what you should be looking at, I think, when you go through this section of the code, is trying to figure out what things will capture those events. And as you pointed out before, the reason these are in yellow is you're trying to decide whether to keep them or to modify them. Okay, but that's what I think you should be doing, is trying to capture events that need to be reviewed. It's not about controlling people's behavior. Thanks.
Thank you.
So do we need to have a definition and the parts of it, what a special event is?
That's a good point, because just from what Rob was saying, and all that, I'm gonna use a real off-the-wall idea. Girl Scouts selling cookies at McKay's, is that a special event?
They pop up a kiosk and they're selling to the public.
Yeah. By these definitions, that's a special event.
So, like I said, these are
Well, it's just.
things that we need to modify to make
Right.
sure that things like Girl Scout cookies, belt salesperson, that
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of thing aren't.
I think especially
Caught up
events
in
is
this.
bathrooms, like it was mentioned, all the criteria, all the items that requires not just a food unit, but everything else to make the event.
So when a special permit is made, what it does is it puts it into the city administrator's hands as to whether to be approved, and he checks out the safety of it, whether it's gonna cause a problem or not. So that's what we're talking about at this point. I'm not sure, Rick, if we're charging anything for special permits,
In the past, we've definitely paid for permits.
how much?
I think $100, I think is what we paid in the past.
For every permit?
So in your event permit, what entailed that event? What was the event? And what did it need to take? Electricity, bathroom, utilities?
We can use Experience Lakeside as an example. For
Right.
that, in that permit process, it seemed as if the city manager wanted to make sure that we were gonna have proper egress and traffic control. She wanted to make sure that we were gonna have proper sanitary, porta potties, trash cans, those sort of things. She asked, there was some notification to the neighbors and things like that that were required.
So that's a special event, criteria that, I mean, Girl Scout group's not gonna have a potty right next to it. They're there
Right.
as a fundraiser, maybe there's something else that's gonna stay. I don't think that, so that should take that, they should be in the business of being. quote,
No, I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying,
So-
where when we get to B, unless we modify B, that would require anything that does sales.
So
Yes,
we
permit.
should consider at this point the cost of actually doing a special event. As far as city administrator looking at it, if it was free, I'd think all these would apply, but it's not. So I do understand that if there's a cost involved, maybe we should consider what level we want to go at with this.
I mean,
Because,
he's not the only one. D, E, F, several
well,
of these.
we'll go through all of them.
Okay.
And remember, it's not something that we're saying we're restricting you to it. We're just saying that, hey, the city has a responsibility to provide a safe environment for all of its citizens, right? You would agree with me on that?
Absolutely. Does someone sell buses in
Exactly.
the parking lot?
And that's the whole point behind a special permit, that we're not doing something that's gonna cause harm to the citizens.
So I should read it.
How about a special event is A, which could include a number of these other things?
150 is a lot of people. You can have 50 people, and if you're in the public right of way, it could be an issue, right? And so, but I understand what you're getting at, maybe we subcategorize some of these items. So let's go through each of the items. I think we're all okay with A, right? So, right, David, Randy, Carl, you guys fine with A?
I mean, the whole
Okay.
thing right there.
So, no, the sub AA,
The gathering of 150 or
Okay.
more people.
right. So now, number B.
Now that says just in part on public property, nothing about private or the public right of way.
It says it's located in whole or in part of public property
On
or the
public.
public right of way, correct?
So private property, it wouldn't apply.
It wouldn't
You can
apply.
put 500 people in private property.
Okay,
Am I understanding it wrong?
it says here, we'll read it again. A gathering of 150 people or more located in whole or in part on public property or a public right of way, right? So
But you
it could
just
be on
said-
private property and on public property. If some of it's on public property, 150 people, that is actually a special event.
Okay, so if it's at the Osprey Point in the field there and he has 1,000 people in his field, this wouldn't apply. Because it's going to.
This is number, this is the first one, this is A.
I understand.
There are other laws, if he has 1,000 people in Osprey Point where fire gets involved and other things like that.
Well, if you had 151.
Okay,
We would cover that.
Or if
We
you
would
have,
cover Osprey.
yeah, you would have to cover those type of things. Okay, so let's go to B. A gathering or event that involves the intent of sales or services to the public outside of the host's normal business, program, or activity. Now, I'm hearing that that's too general. What do you guys think? That it should be a little bit more lenient? How do you guys feel about that?
I personally feel that we should be writing a mobile food unit ordinance,
Okay, David,
instead of
point of order.
temporary use.
David, point of order. We are discussing this version right here. Okay, so I was asking the question, a gathering or event that involves the intent or sales of services to the public outside the host's normal business hours, program, or activity. Do we feel that's too general?
Not if it's a subsection of A.
Do we want to put that as a subsection of A? I'm kind of thinking that it loses its intent at that point.
I think B doesn't ask whether it's public or private, so I think it needs to be a separate section.
Where does, if I may, where does the sales or service to the public present any sort like Rob mentioned, present any dangers to the public? Why would that be the criteria that makes it a special event at all?
It's the gathering is where you run into issues or the type of event it is. Say, for example, you have a fire thrower there or something like that. That would be something where you might have safety issues. But what is everybody's feelings on this? Commissioner?
I think it's a subsection of A.
Should be scratched.
Subsection of AA is what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
subsection of A. Like I was saying, subsection AA, which might include some of these others.
Or essentially, we could just scratch that one out.
Yeah. I'd be happy scratching B.
Because I mean, what part of that would be, have to be reinterpreted and looked again? What part of that is going to make a difference between understanding and we have to put
Right.
in? What's the light, what's the end results of it? What's the story?
Right, well, we're talking about public safety.
Yes,
There were some pretty decent comments about that and whether it's really valuable or not.
when we talk about public safety, you're talking about overcrowding people or
Right.
people getting. I know it sounds crazy, and I know we should be so lucky that we have that many people that we,
Well, you always plan for the future though.
oh, I plan for the future.
You know, I
That
want to,
sounds-
I
that
want to
sounds
see
good.
1,000 people.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think.
We're
we gotta-
also restricted about 250. So Carl, you're saying scratch it. Dave, you're saying scratch it.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, you've gone. Okay, C, admission is controlled by donations, entry fees, or tickets. Festival type events, concerts, runs, walks, races, contests. And I do see where you're getting to the point of maybe it should be included. So I don't know about overcomplicating things.
So
Dave, yes, please.
detour, no lunch. So we're talking public land, right? Public property, not, so if we had, say for instance, we had a band on the weekend and we wanted to charge $5 a head, that wouldn't.
This is actually talking about both. Yeah, this is actually talking about both public and private.
But if it doesn't exceed the 150, we still need a permit.
That's what it shows here, yes.
That it wouldn't. Would,
It would need a permit, yeah. And remember, a permit is simply, getting approval and paying $100, which is. it's a
So
pretty
is it-
sticking point.
Is it, if the event, he has the event, and it's only 75 people. And then all of a sudden, does he have to, like, gamble on the fact that he's gonna be paying for this permit for 150 people, but only 50 show up?
You just make an estimate. Nobody's gonna hold you to it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it was based on,
You don't,
we're paying.
oh, I
we're
only
charging-
had 99, you get your money
Right,
back.
if we're charging you X amount of dollars for this.
We should be clear too, that at the top it says any of them shall require any of these, not just, it doesn't have to meet the 150. So if 10 people show up and he charges them $5 a piece,
Yeah, that
then
was,
potentially he needs a
Well,
permit
yeah.
if we don't change.
that was explained earlier. Yes, I said it, every one of them, right?
If you notice that on this whole list here, after the first one, it says or.
Meaning it could be any one of them.
A or.
Yes, exactly. All right, so, what do you guys think about that?
What do you consider a contest?
Are the admissions controlled by donation, entry fees, or tickets?
So they're having a contest of who's the best motorcycle in private property. Is that considered?
Is it controlled by donations, entry fees, or tickets? No, you can have a contest, right, where it's not controlled, David? Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, one more question. So back to, kind of what Rob said about, the safety of the people, how does charging admission, if it doesn't
Right,
relate to the safety of the public?
right, exactly, yeah, and it goes back to
Could
that.
that be scratched?
Well, you have a natural, in a building, that ultimate capacity of people can be in that building, so if it has a limit of 200, you've already basically
He's restricted by.
you're guiding that in fact, so that should be just no
I just
brainer.
didn't see how charging admission would.
I'd like
need
to
fall
point something
under,
out.
under that. That's not really a public concern or safety.
Reading through this, to me, it's talking solely about public property. I don't see anything in here that says. anything
That's
about
where you
private.
see things, public property or right away.
Yeah.
Public right away.
That's where you see.
To me, it
in
doesn't
there.
affect anything on private property. If somebody's got a farm and they wanna put a out in pasture, they wanna put together a music concert. You know, that, according to the way I read this, it doesn't affect that. That's private property.
I don't see
It
any.
doesn't say.
I agree with you, Carl.
It doesn't say that. That's just the parent property.
My problem with taking it private property out of it is someplace like Osprey holding an event where they're having loud music or something else for an extended period of time. I would want that reviewed by the city ahead of time.
And that's actually not allowed in the regular ordinance to hold a public
But
event.
shouldn't it be reviewed if he's having an event of, let's
Yeah.
say,
It's true.
you know,
Would that follow into the nuisance laws? Instead of a participant for that point?
Right. So this includes public and private.
I know that if I had a
Say it.
nightclub.
Where does it say that?
It doesn't say it anywhere
Where
for
does it
private.
say private?
Says-
property?
Exactly, since it doesn't say it for either public or private, and it's got it in there as public. You know, talking about the public right of way and that type of thing, then it's for both.
Public right of way is the public
Anyway.
right of way, like parking on on 8th Street. That's the public right of way. It does, public right of way is not your private property.
So what you do is go up and look at the very first sentence there. Special permit required, any temporary use that involves any of the following shall require a special permit. Doesn't say whether it's on public or private property at all. So
Number
you have
A
to
does.
assume. Now, number A does, correct, and it mentions that it's talking about public property,
Right.
whereas the others are talking about both.
No, I don't know.
So admissions are controlled by donations, entry fees or tickets, assuming that it's both on public and private property.
Oh, as far as those are concerned, I don't know if that is some way of fixing the matter. I think we should scratch that part.
What part does?
That's number C.
Oh,
Our goal is to make this as simple and as understanding as we can. I'm hoping that the ones we keep are the umbrella of the other things that we got rid of.
So, and assuming I'm not putting words in Dave's mouth, is you would say, hey, if I had 10 people that I charged admission to, where's my return on that, right?
And where's
Would
the
that be
public,
correct?
where's the public interest in that?
Yeah, I don't see that as a.
Okay,
As
Sandy?
a safety.
Sandy Lindahl. So if you have it in your home, that's private, right? But what if it spills out into the street? That's public. So you need to put public and
Or if it's in the public side of it.
because parties do spill out into the streets.
See, I'm confused with that as well. I mean, if something spills out in the streets, that's basically another ordinance that would fall into it, because that just, that, you know, how do you monetize that? How do you quantify that particular issue that comes out in the streets? I live Lakeside, and I haven't seen that kind of spectacular thing in a long time. I'm willing to see it happen just for the fun of it. I'd even pay for the penalty just to see that. I know we're looking at both ways. I know we're looking at, 150 minimum. Yeah, and maybe 20 years from now, it'll be 1,000 minimum. So I know we have to keep things in specifics from what I understand, Mark, but I'm getting the taste of what the people are saying. Interpreting what is this particular issue of who, what, and the kinds of things that we got. It's confusing. But I know you and I and all of us here, we like to simplify it.
Right.
It's like a 3-pointer, boom, 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 and we all know. And we can automatically know that that's what it is. As far as a interest store, private property where they have a nightclub and they have dancing and stuff to come in, that's an internal event in the building that's gone on for eons. As far as parties and events and drinking and bands and going.
Right.
So I don't know how do you go to the city hall and say, we're gonna have this band and we expect 150 people.
No, you wouldn't do that unless it actually went on the street.
We do that after the fact.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is
Yeah.
it like,
But you're still advertising it.
You're still advertising.
And if you're at the lodge and they go into the parking lot.
But they're not advertising it to go into the right of way.
Okay,
Right,
but then they're. gonna go to
into
the street.
public property, because you shouldn't be congregating people on public property. But he has every right to say, hey, we're gonna have, whatever going on here, show up and that type of thing, just like, a bar or something like that has, hey, we're gonna have Led Zeppelin show up or something like that to our bar. Well, that would require a special permit because you'd be over 150 people easily. And you'd be going out onto the street, but if we're having somebody else who's gonna be under 150 people,
This just doesn't say that under 150 people doesn't apply.
right, but that's why we're talking about this and seeing whether it's a good thing to have or not. Dave Grover?
So when you're saying when it spills out into public property,
That's,
are you saying that the parking? Say we had, an event and the parking lot was full, so they parked along the gates and all in there, is that what's considered? Or are you saying when it spills, when the event spills out into the street, into the public?
Where it
public
well,
property?
the city's concern is where it becomes a traffic issue, right? And people parking in our regular parking spots on the street, that would obviously not be a traffic issue, right? And I guess the number that's being used here is 150, which, might be too high, might be too low, I don't, that's a standard, I guess, that was pulled up at some point. Rob, you can maybe answer that one.
Rob Ward, Lakeside. These suggested criteria are all directly from the Oregon Small Cities Model Code,
Right.
including the number of 150. And so
That's where they felt 150 was the
no
lowest.
reason that you have to accept any of the details here.
Exactly. And I think 150 is probably a good number, for all I know. That's what the state thinks is a good number. So I think we're gonna make a decision on emissions. Number C, do we keep it or not? David, what do you think?
I'd kick it. I'd scratch it.
Carl?
I don't know, I'm still hung up on, public or private.
Well,
Because if you jump all the way down to I, fencing or traffic control will be required on public streets or private property or,
And-
um,
Or
so
what?
that's referencing that if it's on private property, you only need it if it's going to affect the public streets and things.
On number I, correct,
On number I.
right, that's why this applies to both.
No, that's, I'm saying it doesn't apply to private property. If you put something on private property and it's not going to go onto the street, public street or right of way, it doesn't involve it.
Right, but in here, we've got it in there that it does. So are
Well,
we
I'm
gonna
saying
strike
it's
C?
wrong.
Okay, so that's, so C is gone. I'm in agreement with C too, so I know at least we have 3 people here who don't want to have C, so it's gone.
Okay.
And my biggest thing about C is there's no real number or qualifier on it to really, to where the city can say, hey, this is gonna be an issue. So,
I have a question.
sure. And
Okay, so if you get 150 cars, is that not going to be a traffic issue?
150 cars would be a traffic issue. 50 cars,
That would be an issue.
that would be an issue in the city. We might want to put in an additional line about, traffic, but let's go through all of them first and see what we can do, because, 50 cars might be something to think about. Okay, number D, participants are charged an entry fee. And this kind of goes up with the same thing with, admissions. Do we want to qualify a special event with this? I see a shaking of head.
I do
No.
not.
Okay, so we'll scratch that.
Scratch D.
D.
Yeah, but it just comes.
E, I had some questions about it in the first place, even with trying to define it. So how does everybody feel about E? Event is advertised to the public with or without a fee, such as dog shows, car shows, etc.
How would you implement that? What would be, how would you go about satisfying that particular issue there?
Well, how would that be, when I'm looking at this, how would that affect how would that affect the city?
Correct.
So.
Well, I would think that if you saw an advertisement for something out there in the paper or wherever and all that, I would think that it will put a red flag to the city saying, maybe this is a special event.
Well, I would be secretary citizens, to be honest. But, okay, you're up next.
Paul Harnum, Lakeside.
Oh, yeah,
So with advertisement, you said a newspaper as an example, that would be like a paid advertisement, we paid to have it out there, but my social media, that's a free element. But so if you put something on social media saying, hey, I'm doing such and such, would that constitute as being advertised to the public?
Yes.
And then are we gonna, Adam Lakeside, and then are we gonna say everything that is advertised, all of a sudden needs a permit? And then further in here, it says that you need to plan that 60 days ahead of time. So now you're saying that Dave Brover needs to come into the Lakeside, or into the city hall 60 days ahead of time, apply for a permit to advertise that he's gonna have Tom Miller's band down at the bar.
depends on what the event is and how many people do.
Yeah, that's private property. I mean, I think that kind of goes along with the admissions and things like that, as long as it's not exceeding the 150.
Right.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We'd advertise.
Right. Exactly. So, advertisement, scratch it, you guys, what do you think? Scratch.
Well, as far as the advertisement, I know you're saying it, but as a business person myself, spur of the moment events never made me money. Planning, doing a alertment weeks in advance made the event more eventful. It became an event. Oh, let's go to the store, honey. Oh, no, we got that event coming up. But see, so there's planning instead of like, okay, call the kids, we're not going there no more, we're going to this event tonight. And no, not even, so I mean, that's what I'm trying to think of, is just the,
Right,
how often is the event being an event or just a happening?
right. And again, it goes back to the, can we really define, I mean, if somebody wants to advertise that they're gonna have a sale or something like that, so. So are we good with not including that? What do you guys think?
E? Yeah, kill it. Scratch it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Sandy, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Sandy Lindahl.
what about car shows?
Car shows are where and how many people show up?
Osprey Point,
So
Are those
that's
planned
on-
events?
they're planned events, but you're
They're
also
on
gonna
private
have a lot of cars.
And are there gonna be more than hundred and fifty people there?
Yes,
Bingo, special event. That one,
But
you
that
know,
one's on
and we know the
private
car
property,
show
but
brings
it's private
in
property,
easily
private
that.
property, so it's not covered by something.
What's that?
It's not covered, it's not on public property. The car show is not on public property, so it wouldn't be covered by A.
A doesn't say whether it's,
It does.
It does.
oh, yeah. Okay, so we'll probably need to write something in there about that, because that's too many people gathering in a space without having the city look at it. Because there's, you know, safety issues definitely involved in that. Well, that was Karen brought, by the way.
There are hundreds of people on any given day at Osprey Point. I mean, on any,
This is an additional amount of people condensed in a small area. You only have one entryway in and out. This is something that the city does need to look at.
I'm not arguing, I'm just saying that
Right,
a couple hundred people isn't.
So if he had 149 cars, he wouldn't need a permit.
you
Or
may have
149 people.
149
well,
cars.
at this point, he would.
149 people, he wouldn't need a permit.
Okay, you may have
Each car had 10
149 cars
people in it.
in the show,
Where-
but what about the spectators? Where are they gonna park?
Exactly. Well, if it's on Osprey Point. they'll park on
Right,
Osprey
but
Point.
you're gonna have more than 100.
Right. Okay,
So maybe add, write it to the.
yeah, we'll have to, I'm thinking we
He
need a
went.
category.
He went.
Well, that was covered under I.
We're on F.
Yeah, it probably will be covered under I, but let's move down to that. So food is being prepared or served for consumption by public at an event.
Wouldn't that,
That brings up a health issue.
I think, wouldn't that be covered by the health department? Because like you have a food truck, I mean, it's all that by the health department, so they. I'll permit.
So if, now here's the, when we start getting into food trucks down below, is we were planning on not covering food trucks if it was part of a special event. So that will create a little bit of complication there. So we could either have it up here, but we do need to ensure that the public's, you know, they're not getting bad food, but they already will have licenses, right? So they'll already have licenses and all be certified. What about a taco stand? 10 by 10 canopy, person serving food.
Still need to have like.
Okay. Okay.
Question for David. Again, I think we took this question before. Is this your food truck there for Union? Is that open every day, all the time? Or is that on special event times?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's still there. It's parked at that spot because it's on private.
Storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's parked, it's not in operation.
Well,
As, on Lakeside resident. Again, I think we would avoid a lot of the back and forth if we put, you know, the public right away have and two of the following. So like it's the initial 150 or the initial requirement, and two or more of the following. and then I think you'd be fine with it.
That, I would rather look at each circumstance, see whether it's necessary or not, because that gets really confusing when you start stacking stuff on top of each other. Just, is it, because the way I want to look at it is, hey, is this really necessary for the citizens to be protected or not? Bottom line, and if you say, well, only one of them might not be necessary, but the other is, then it kind of gets a little
So
muddled.
we're on letter E right now. The event is advertised to the public, so basically.
He's gone.
Scratch.
Not scratched,
Yeah,
okay.
he's gone.
I did not scratch that. Right. So we're on to F.
You're on,
Yeah.
but F and G go together
Initially,
and it states public property.
yeah,
And those things are already very well regulated by other departments.
yes, by the health authority.
Yeah, and well, served on public property.
Yeah, no.
So
nobody
what
in
if
city
you have a
hall-
liquor license? And you're serving liquor on a public property?
Well, I mean, I think we were just on the.
That's not covered by the liquor license, is it? You can't serve it.
What if we had,
So liquor license says you cannot serve liquor on public property.
If you have a
You
mobile
would have to
food
have a
unit,
special license.
Special, yeah. Like
From
Darren Weathers,
the alcohol.
Mary Ray,
Yeah, so from the
So-
alcohol department.
you work under Darren Weathers when he had it, I did this, and we went to the ball field over here, but we were working on his liquor license, it was a special permit.
So you
To-
have to have,
Off premise, it's called off premise.
okay, and Rob?
Rob Ward, Lakeside. The alcohol served on public property also, besides this, public health and safety issues poses a separate city liability issue.
That's,
And one of the requirements further on for a special event is that there be insurance that covers the city from losses associated with the event. And I think the city would be well served by having that requirement for an event that serves alcohol on public property.
yeah,
in essence, they have those
definitely agree
beer
with that.
cards where you can only go out, you cannot go out beyond the perimeter of where you're serving.
well, the liability alone. is
But
gonna be-
that's one of the criteria in which the insurance people would ask mostly.
they did that at the brew fest. They
Right,
had it
right.
roped off a
Right.
certain area at the brew fest on public.
That was
property.
that was the compromise between all of walking around.
Okay, Dave,
That's something that OCC would require.
Mhm.
To get the permit.
but I think the city also needs to cover itself. That's why we want to not have alcohol. Even if it is required and something messes up, they can still go after the city. My assumption is, right?
You can always sue.
Yeah, exactly, and we don't want to get into a situation. Paul, I'm sorry.
So, hold on a second. We did have a soft opening at a place of business, and there was a mobile truck there. It had alcohol. But she had her permit from OCC, and as well as she applied for the city of Lakeside for her permit for that,
And she was on private property.
and private property, correct?
Exactly.
So that would distinguish it from public and private for.
Now, if you moved it out to the street, then that would cause issues.
Right. Thank you.
So, F, food being prepared by the public at an event. What do you guys think?
As far as having the,
Requiring it or not?
Well, food and alcohol go hand in hand. When you have a liquor license, you have to serve food.
No, two different things. Alcohol can impair you. Food
It can burn you.
hopefully won't impair you.
It can burn you.
If you are serving liquor, you have to serve food.
If you're serving food, you don't have to serve liquor.
No, but you can't scratch F and then, let's say, keep G, because you have to serve food if you're serving liquor, alcohol, liquor, not beer, but liquor.
Okay, again, you can serve food, which would be G or F, without serving G. Correct.
You're talking about keeping both, right?
Well, so far, we're discussing F. I think we're pretty much, what do you guys think? about
You're,
G?
you're basically saying that you can't delete F if you're going to keep G.
But you can delete F because it's food. Oh, if you're gonna keep G,
If you're going to
correct.
keep G.
But, well, let's decide on G. Do we want to keep G?
I think it should be allowed. I mean, we do it at Wolfie Beach. Does that mean Wolfie Beach can't have a beer fest? Or a brew fest?
That absolutely means Wolfie Beach can have a beer fest because it would be a special event and it would be regulated by the city administrator.
And they serve food. They
Yeah,
just serve
and you
food.
can serve food. And that's the point behind the special event is,
And then there's beer garden where they can't go beyond the drink, they can't go out into the beach and swim by their beer can in their hand. So they have parameters.
so I think we keep G. Can we decide on that one?
Alcohol will be served on public property.
Or
Yeah,
what's the or for? At the end?
Again, this is defining what a special event is.
So
And
by,
if you're serving alcohol on public property, it needs a special event. Permit.
and that has nothing to do with food if you serve alcohol.
No,
Well, what it means is you can't serve alcohol unless you have a special permit, but you can serve food if we just decide to scratch food.
Any public service of food is covered by the health department. Any food served in public has been looked at by a health professional that knows way more about what is safe with food than anybody at City Hall.
Karen, correct?
A lot of companies have been sued because they burned. Like they serve coffee that's too hot and they burn the customers mouth. That's not gonna be covered by a health permit. That's what you need insurance for. And that's why you need a permit for food.
so if we had a tray of cookies out here, would we need a permit for that? If we had a tray of cookies?
Well, we can say hot food.
Hot food.
Everybody food.
Got that one, yeah.
if we turn on this coffee. Get burned.
Yeah.
But you're also required to have insurance and have had the county health department look over your food operation to make sure that your hot water heater isn't producing hot water that's too hot. Or that if you're serving hot beverages, that you have insulated cups. These sort of things are addressed with food code.
So we're referring to these as the mobile food units,
No, this is just under temporary use,
This is just temporary use.
which not even,
which is food being prepared and served for consumption.
not even on the mobile food unit yet.
But that's nothing, had nothing to do with truck. Okay,
No, this is just temporary uses.
By public at the event.
we're gonna hold off my opinion later.
So are we going to, what are we gonna do with food number F?
So,
Being prepared, Ross?
Mr. Chairman. Rob Ward, Lakeside. One of the potential problems with F is that it refers to food being prepared and served without respect to whether that's on public or private property.
Exactly.
So you might, if you're considering keeping that one from a from a city liability perspective, you might want to revise it so that it only applies to food that's being prepared and served on public property.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
just
that
like
makes
G,
sense.
just like G.
so food is being prepared and served for consumption
On public property.
on public property
Are we all good
by
with
the
that?
public at the event.
Because All the other food things are covered by obviously the owner. Okay. Fence and canopies exceeding 144 square feet will be erected. Adam?
Right off the bat, I think we could add that same qualifier on public property to that one. And have that.
I don't really agree with that. That's a huge tent.
Yeah, 12 by 12.
By 12.
That's
Yeah.
a 12 by
That
12,
big.
that's your typical.
That's your-
12 by 12.
Oh, by 12.
I guess it's not that big. Oh, okay, never mind, yeah. I was thinking of something, one of those, huge, 24, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Listen,
So we scratching it?
Yeah, so let's scratch that one.
H.
H.
I think you should just add on public property.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we might want to do public property on that one too. That's right.
Or you might consider changing it from 144 square feet to a total square footage of some other number that suggests an event of sufficient size that it's going to require evaluation for traffic and other safety parameters.
For the funds.
Well, if you have a bigger tent, like the think your tent, those big white ones you're talking about, that would be more than
No,
hundred and fifty people.
Talking about,
Multiple units.
Yeah, those would be multiple
Five
units
of
and it would
these
still
guys.
fall under the 150 people with a still special permit. Special event permit. If you had multiple ones like you see at the Winchester Bay, all those mobile.
So
tents.
a 10 by 10 does not need a permit. So if it
Yeah.
exceeds 144 square feet. And excuse me. And
Instead of dropping the mic.
So can we agree upon the size of the tent matters?
Well, I
I'm sorry,
believe Rob was getting to the point of what if you have 10 of those 10 by 10s next to each
Yeah,
other?
well, and
now, like, those are individual
and a
or not
cumulative
that.
size would actually matter. So how many people is it safe to put in an accumulative tent?
Depends on what you have in the tent for your merchandise.
of course, this is plural, tents or canopies exceeding 144
Right,
square.
140.
So if you had two of them, automatically you're above.
You're above it.
Yeah.
Right, well, we're pretty much set on 144 is a little light. It's a little
So-
small.
Can we do the math real quick on what a 20 by 30 or what size tent that we think represents an issue, you know what I mean?
Anything over 144 square feet.
No.
15 by
Okay,
15.
If you have 150 people, you think about the fact that each person's gonna want 2 square feet to themselves.
High on one.
Okay,
500 square.
let's find a real number on that one.
Well, 500 square feet would be 5 typical
That
pop-up
makes sense.
canopies. So anything over 5 pop-up canopies would require a permit.
5 10 by 10s.
That would be 500 square feet. At the holiday events, for instance, at the lodge, not all vendors have a pop-up canopy, but we put in about 20 vendors.
Well, yeah, we're just talking about an average. So 5 would be, and how many was 5 again?
10 by 10.
500 for 10 by 10.
500. So I think 500 is a decent number. I would agree 144 is a little. So 500 square feet
For H.
for
And,
H.
and I might suggest you put a little bit of wiggle room in there because again, that's 5 10 by 10s. Sometimes a guy shows up with a 12 by 12.
You get 5 12 by
You know what I
12.
mean? So if you called it 600, for instance, you might give us room for that. You know what I mean?
Let's just say 1,000. if you got it. I mean, obviously, someone's gonna come up with a bigger net. I mean, I think 500 square feet and a fudge, a 2 foot extra. I don't think someone's gonna come around and with a tape measure and say that. I think they're gonna be restricted to the.
So 7.
If they did, just all your life went and bought it.
Okay, so 5 times.
Wait,
Let me say 750. That will cover the
750.
12 by 12.
Yes, that covered you, 750. All right. Good. I. Fencing or traffic control will be required on public streets or public property. That would handle the issues about parking and extra traffic. You know, when we
Yes.
don't worry about, 150 being too many or too light. So I think that one definitely needs to stay. What do you guys think? Agree. Yeah. Okay, good. Two more. Signs, certified flaggers, police are needed to control or direct traffic. Yep. Carl, what do you think?
Yeah.
David,
Yes.
it's in. A stage or similar structure is built on or delivered to the site. Again, that's public safety. Adam?
Would that cover, for instance, if Dave wanted to have a band on his back lawn, he has a 1 foot stage brought up for the band to be put on there. Again, it's on completely on his private property. It could be less than 150 people. It could be,
Say out in public parking.
so again,
Yeah,
I think that
let's make it on public property.
To the site on public property.
Mhm.
that distinguished, that's why I asked that question from the very get-go, was whether or not this covered private and public, because.
Right.
it matters.
And it was actually covering both, so now we've got the clarifications as to whether it's just about public or whether it's public and private. All right, good. Duration, we worked this one out before and it was, you came up with the criterion of 45 days instead of doing one event, multiple times and that type of thing. That came up in the minutes. That was a discussion that everybody had decided on.
I made a note that if you did something once a week for a year,
Right,
that'd be 52 days versus 45.
right, and we were going, 45 was the compromise. Are you guys still good with 45? Are you still good with 45? Okay. Permit application, 60 days prior to the event, completed application and payment of event permit fee has been received by the city no less than 60 days prior to the beginning of the event. I think that's a reasonable time period. What do you think, Rick? Is that too short?
I don't think it is, because when you could, if something gets appealed to the council, and the council only meets once a month, I don't think it allows enough time.
You've got a good point. Adam?
I don't disagree with 60 or 90 or whatever, as long as it doesn't implicate every little thing, as long as that really counting for large, big events.
Give us
Well,
an
as-
example.
as
What's an
we-
example?
We've defined the events. We just got finished defining the events. So what we're talking about is what we've defined in the events. Rob Ward?
I'm suggesting, that, Rick, you might want to look at 3A and 3B in tandem. Because, A is requiring the event organizer to apply at least 60 days ahead of time. And D is requiring the city administrator to issue a decision within 30 days of receipt, which gives a month for the appeals process to take place.
Yeah, and if that appeal process, if the decision's made the day after a council meeting, then it's 30 days until the next council meeting.
So 90 days?
Like 90 days.
90 days?
I like 90 days.
Okay, 90 days. Okay, the application is different than the property owner and must provide proof if the applicant is different from the property owner, must provide proof of the owner's permission to place the use on the property with the application. I think that's pretty straightforward. Obviously, you need the owner's approval. Application must be accompanied by information sufficient to ensure the event is compliant with permitted requirements at the time of the application. And these are ones that we've already approved. I'm just gonna go through them. Yeah, and do you want me to go through these or not? Guys?
Well, we just changed the 60 to 90, so
Yeah, let's
Let's
keep
do it.
going.
Keep going. All right. City administrator shall issue a decision on any special event application that fully satisfies the conditions A through C above within 30 days of receipt. That's what Rob was just talking about, the timing of everything. And that's why we want to extend it to 90 days.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
might I suggest that throughout the entire document, we refer to it as the city manager rather than the city administrator
Okay.
throughout the entire document?
Yeah, yeah, we can change. That's a good idea. Change the whole document to that.
Thank you.
Like this was model code, so.
Yeah.
All right, ingress, egress. It has to meet the zoning codes. Pretty much straightforward, right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Visual clearance, same thing.
Yeah.
Parking, sufficient parking to accommodate temporary use and other existing sites. Good. Sure. Yeah. Off-site impacts. The use does not create an adverse off-site impact, including vehicle traffic, noise, odors, vibrations, glare, lights that affect an adjoining use in any manner in which others uses allowed outright in the district do not affect the adjoining use.
And we're considering this, the mark, on public property
Public and private.
and private.
So if they're cooking hot dogs and you don't like the smell of hot dogs or odors,
We're talking about an adverse impact as far as,
Adverse.
as far as the decision of the city manager. The city manager says, hey, it's not gonna affect anything.
Adverse would be skunks. You don't
Right.
want people going around.
And then if you disagree with the city manager, it goes to be appealed. So we're good on that?
Yep.
Sanitation. The use is adequately served by sewer, septic, and water as applicable. In other words, if you have a food truck, it's already self-contained, it wouldn't be applicable as far as covering it for the sewer and septic. In other words, we just want to make sure that, standard health is there. Restrooms and hand washing facilities are sufficient. Trash receptacles and disposal are sufficient and do not involve the use of city waste and receptacles. Resources and plans for post-event sites cleanup are adequate. City administrator may elect to require that the event organizers post a bond to ensure post-event site cleanup is completed. And I know that was one that was added later on because there was concern about it not being cleaned up, and that will be the discretion of the city manager. So we're all good with that, right? Stop me if we're not good with it, guys, because I know this is not y'all, but licensing. The applicant shall be responsible for acquiring and maintaining all required licensing and permits. Are we all good with that? Yep. Mitigation and liability insurance. The applicant shall enter into a hold harmless agreement with the city of Lakeside, obtain comprehensive general liability for an event with limits of not less than $1 million and listed on the city of Lakeside as additionally insured. That's a hard for the city, yeah. Okay, appeals. an appeal of a decision by the city manager with respect to an application for a special permit shall be made to the city council. I think that's the governing body, so.
Yep.
We're good with that? All right. So do we even need to cover fee? This is sales offices for,
May I request a addendum to that last part
sure,
on the liability? If the event is jointly or partially sponsored, excuse me. If the event is jointly or partially sponsored by the city, the requirement for insurance may not be required. So I'm asking for some phraseology that allows, unless event is co-sponsored by the city or something like that. Because the city, through our insurance with city county insurance, if we sponsor an event and we can sponsor a certain number, they don't let us become Sin City.
every event.
But if we have one or two events in which we are asked to co-sponsor or to sponsor, we can sometimes get the coverage under our current umbrella for
all of it.
So I'm asking for some language that exempts unless co-sponsored
Yeah.
event by city.
So is that just by the, for that event only?
Yes.
So it's,
Right, for that event, only if it's, more.
Would you want that exemption to be absolute or at the discretion of the city manager?
At discretion.
So if we add in the verbiage at the discretion of the city manager based upon the
Full
insurance
sponsorship.
needs,
The need for the insurance.
based upon the need for insurance. Yeah, let's add that. That's good. Very good.
Thank
Get
you.
something out of the latest insurance meeting, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what do you guys think about the temporary sales office for subdivisions? Do we need to even have that?
we don't have any
Yeah.
questions on that.
All right. So now we're into the general food truck. Before I get into it too much, we have sentences in here which says, unless part of a special event that has received a permit from the city. Now, originally, it was put up at the very top, which would mean everything in section C would be essentially okay, if it was part of a special event. Or we have it in a section where it says we're only talking about the location. So as we go through this, we want to make sure that our requirements for, if we are going to put it up at the top, we want to make sure that we don't miss anything in our requirements for food trucks that wouldn't actually be a detriment that isn't already covered with special events. If we're talking about putting it up at the very top here, where we're talking about at the very top of section C. Now, if we want to have the special event requirements plus all the food, mobile food units and kiosk and everything like that requirements, if we want to have both of them, then we would consider to break it out individually, say for like location or something like that. So let's think about this as we go through it. Or does anybody have any comments as to whether we just want to keep the two separate or not? This is one way of keeping actual day in, day out food trucks versus special events food trucks.
Well, day-to-day uses, I don't think you'd want any mobile food units on public right of way. Our streets aren't wide enough.
Right. So a special event, and this is, I'm glad you brought this up as an example of what I'm talking about. So a special event, we would want to have, we might
You'd
want
let
to have it on a public right away,
Yeah,
right?
you'd let them down like park.
Bingo. And so that's what I'm talking about, the exclusion of a requirement for a food truck versus you don't want to have, if you have them doubled up, you might not be able to have it for a special event. So why don't we go along with the premise right now that up at the top, we're gonna do unless part of a special event that that has received a permit from the city. Keeping special events in its own category, food trucks are handled by special events for special events, and trucks, daily usage are handled by daily usage at this point. And then if we think that we're missing something in the other code, we'll go from there. All right, so temporary buildings, trailers, kiosks, mobile food units, food trucks, and other structures. And I'm gonna go ahead and include the highlighted yellow in this, unless part of the special event that has received a permit from the city administrator shall approve with conditions, or deny an application for the placement and use of a temporary building, trailer, kiosk, mobile food unit, or other structure based on the following criteria. So again, this is no longer going to be a decision done by the planning commission, but by the city manager. First off, location. Temporary location is a temporary building, trailer, kiosk, or other structure which may be located. And then we had already went through this, but do we still want to go through each of the requirements here?
Well, it's gonna help us all understand exactly what the food truck's location and what they can do and what they can't do. Let's do it.
I hear Randy says we want to do it, so we will do it. In zones where, well, okay, Randy, I'll make you go through it.
Oh, good. Location,
Mhm.
And we're going to exclude the unless part of the special event.
a temporary building may be located, A, in zones where the building or use would be allowed as a permitted use. Or B, in zones where the buildings or use would be allowed as a conditionally permitted use. And in such conditional use, permits have been obtained. Or in non-residential zones where the building or use would not be allowed as a permitted or conditionally permitted use for no more than 3 hours. Or in residential zones, as long as they stay in one location, is no more than 15 minutes.
I don't like that 15 minutes. Let's say I have a private party and I get Elkhorn barbecue and I only have 100 people and I have private property and I can put that mobile unit on private property and I only have 100 people. You should be able to stay there and feed us all day, not just 15 minutes.
My thinking is on a residential zone as far as parking. This here would also be following, if you had followed the things behind it to permit. Now, as far as 15 minutes, what can you do in 15 minutes?
Ice cream truck.
Ice cream truck.
So temporary stuff,
Yeah.
right? So we need to, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. ice
Is
cream
that we
truck.
need to, interpret that. Whether it be a donut truck or a ice cream truck or. Most of those trucks like that don't want to stay around for 15 minutes unless there's lots of people. They want to stop and go. That's what the business is.
Well, what we want to try to avoid is food trucks in residential areas.
Yes.
We don't,
Permanently. So what happens if they just want to bring in, like I just said, Elkhorn barbecue for on a Saturday for their kids' 16th birthday party and there's 100 people. And they're not just gonna bring it in for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Is,
I think it's a special event.
is,
Yeah,
is this another spot where it might be applicable to add the distinction between private and public?
No,
There's no such thing as
it
a
could be
public
on his
residential zone.
driveway, but
Yeah.
still, if he has 150 people,
so-
then where are they going?
and also remember, you're in a residential zone. So, you know, it might not be the best place to do that.
I think,
I mean, you can always have a caterer, Dave. And if the
Yeah.
caterer is your food truck. that's- I don't
So
know.
again, then my mobile food unit, who's catering it, because
Okay.
they're a caterer, they can be there longer than 15 minutes. So all I gotta do is say, Elkhorn,
Street.
you're gonna cater my business, my
As long
event.
as they're not on the street.
I think the whole idea of this whole permit issue is how does it affect the residents of Lakeside? Is the decision we make for this permit to let you have this here, why there is a family next door that can't take that for noise factors? How is it gonna impact the surrounding citizens? Is it gonna make a difference because of it? And that's what's the protection of it is. And that's what this whole thing is. These permits is to protect us and what's the best thing for the whole of the city of Lakeside.
Right.
Well, my soapbox.
It's a very good point. So, Dave has an issue with the 15 minutes. I think the 15 minutes is appropriate. What do you think, Carl?
I'm going to sustain for one.
Okay, Randy?
Well, again, the 15-minute, no more than 15 minutes. What is no more than 15 minutes? What is it, is that what we're saying? This whole line is gonna be for an ice cream truck? Is there other things that we, like, I don't know. I mean, it's just for 15 minutes.
And is it public right away or private property?
Either way, that's what I'm thinking. What's the thing, Mr. Hand?
Previously, in some past meetings, one example that came up was like a motor dog groomer, for instance. That might pull up, park on the public right of way. And spend a half an hour or 45 minutes watching your dog.
Yeah, we did discuss that, and that doesn't apply.
No, this,
And that was up on top where it said,
Yeah, where it's talking about transient business.
well, not,
Which we're
Premises in
saying is
order to
okay.
provide specific service, examples are not limited to landscapers, yard maintenance workers, plumbers, et cetera, mobile food units, or mobile groomers and that type of thing.
so that they can stay a little longer. So the 15-minute thing, is this even relevant to anything? Because we're gonna start doing a little witch hunting here. That person there was there for, X amount of minutes.
Well-
Is it gonna be a burden by looking at this particular issue of the 15-minute thing?
And this is what we want to avoid.
I think it was originally for the cities that have, food trucks coming to businesses to feed the lunch hour and things like that. And they move, there for 15 minutes, they pack up and they move to the next business and they move to the next business.
So this is an old one.
Well,
Oh,
no,
it's outdated.
well, wait a minute. We're talking about residences
Yeah.
here. We're not talking about commercial businesses. Rob, you had a comment?
Yes. Subsection C, which refers to non-residential zones for a period of up to 3 hours. That was for
Yeah.
food trucks
Right.
coming to a place of business, providing lunch.
Right.
And my concern is we have a food truck, say hypothetical. Food truck shows up at my neighbor's house because that happens to be a place where a lot of people show up. And he's serving lunch for an hour. Would you want that next to your house?
Sure, I hope it's some good tri-tip.
Only if I'm
I wouldn't
invited.
want it.
They invite me, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
So I think
But
that's a bad
seriously.
choice. No, I think it's a bad choice.
Seriously, as a resident, I don't think somebody would appreciate having a food truck show up and
No,
run their, in their neighbor's house for an hour every day.
I agree with Dave on, he wants to have an event. I'm not sure how that particular goes, but to have it any other way would just be difficult and be controversial. We'll have more Facebook issues than we have now. I think that the whole idea is just to leave that alone.
Either way with my Facebook.
I know, but
But yeah, my personal feeling is, I think 15 minutes is appropriate in a residential area. This is where we live, I mean, we moved here because we love living there, and that's not really.
But see, I don't even agree with the 15 minutes. I think 15 minutes, they nothing to do out of here. Why is it that, does it need to be there?
Oh, I don't have a problem with an ice cream truck.
Yeah, I mean, an ice cream truck is.
I love ice cream.
Their engine, it doesn't say they're parked. They're not in one location. Those, very seldom do the ice cream trucks stop, turn their engine off. Unless there's 20 kids, yeah, I guess I would think. It's such a rare thing.
We have an offline comment from Ms. B.
Okay, Shirley?
Well, I'm just gonna
Oh,
read
just,
the chat.
okay,
I am definitely hiring taco trucks to come serve my parties at my house. It's a thing.
Cater it.
catering.
Mobile food unit.
I mean, my brother had a taco stand over that for one of his first almost 60 parties in the back of his house, so.
So what do we do with 15 minutes?
So we've got location,
Now, is that right away or private property?
so, okay, let's,
Says residential zones.
I'm
No.
saying 15 is a fair time to give somebody a chance if they want to. As long as they're gone in 15 minutes, I don't think it will be too much of an issue.
So this is a food truck coming up to a little area like in Rachel Street,
Right.
next to a road that only 2 trucks can get through or whatever, and they stop, they plug up for 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, pizza delivery. How long does it take those guys to bail out and give you a pizza? It's the same thing. They're gonna deliver food to your house. Wouldn't that be right?
But they don't say 15 minutes. I mean, if they're stopping off and delivering like, FedEx and UPS does the same thing. So what are we talking about? What this 15 minutes relates to? I've only heard ice cream trucks. And then Shirley B talks about a taco truck. Does she have a taco truck there for 15 minutes? Is it good for her to make that decision based on the whole area of the area that she lives in? Is it for the good of the people, or is it just a selfish act to come back and do something else that's contrary to what we're trying to do? So I mean, these are the kinds of things we just want to use these things to do with, not to use them as weapons in spite of things.
Well, the Lake Shore Lodge has Taco Tuesday.
And that's very
Lake
good.
Shore Lodge. There you go.
Private, yeah.
I'm good with that. My whole church goes down there. Goes that
We
way.
have the taco truck on the, by the marijuana shop.
So we have,
Yeah.
0 minutes on the 15 minutes. David, where are you at right now?
I don't like 15 minutes.
So you're full-time whenever they want to go there?
Again, residential zone, is it private or public? If it's public right away, like Randy said, you shouldn't allow a mobile food unit in any public right away. Now, if it's on private property, it's catered. So then,
But also realize you're in a residential area, you're not in a commercial
well,
area.
hopefully I asked my neighbors and I was nice enough and talked to my neighbors and they're all down for it and we're gonna have a party. And there's 100 people.
But hopefully doesn't count in the law.
Well, it doesn't count the way you said it either, but that's okay. It just doesn't make sense with 15 minutes on private. Is it public?
That distinction.
Public right away or
Super important.
I mean, somebody has an acre and a half property and have a food truck pull up on their own property where they're having, 10, 15, 20 people over.
And it's
gonna take longer than
and it's
15
being
minutes.
catered, right?
It's gonna be longer.
We
It'll be
already said
longer.
catering was fine. So,
Say
you
catering,
know,
that makes a distinction between.
a food truck is where you're selling food to people.
So,
Catering is where you're not gonna be, hopefully you're not selling it to your guests.
Potentially. Potentially, I mean,
Okay, then it's a food truck. So. Where you at?
I'm okay with the 15 minutes.
Okay, I'm good with 15. Where are you at, Randy?
I'd pass.
no,
I know,
I'm a no. Needs to go.
Okay.
but I'm a
well,
no for certain reasons. I'm not no because I want to do something else. It's just that the wording or the interpretation of what that 15 minutes means, whether it be on the road, whether it's an ice cream truck, or, these kinds of things. It's a lot of loopholes or misinterpretation of what that means.
How would you propose to rewrite that?
I would say that the 15 minutes, no more than 15 minutes should be basically, if we're gonna use the ice cream truck type thing as a stop and go, just like FedEx and they're in and out delivering or.
But they park on public right away. They don't
Yeah,
park on
but
my
that's what
private
this,
property.
right. But these are I'm talking about residential zones, not private
Yeah,
property.
okay, so even
just
in
talking about the
residential
zones.
zones, my UPS driver and FedEx driver park on public right away. They don't park on my
Yeah,
private
But they're
property.
not there for more than 15
No.
minutes.
Okay, but we're talking about somebody serving food.
It doesn't even say that.
we're talking about kiosks, which could serve anything. I mean, we're talking
Right,
about.
so
We're just saying
that's why we're saying a
not-
kiosk in a
In more than one
residential
location for
areas.
15 minutes at a time, that's all. That's a nice lemonade stand.
We're in a residential area, right?
If my 8-year-old wants to sell lemonade at the end of my driveway, end of my driveway is technically the city right away, that's 25 feet. So does she need a special event permit?
Well,
Or
I'm
a
thinking,
food
is
unit
this,
permit for a lemonade stand? There's no distinction.
but is this something on wheels that we're talking about?
It could be in a wagon,
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not talking about a motorized vehicle that can.
if it's not written that way.
That's what I'm saying.
There's no distinction.
That's vague. I would like to see a
Temporary,
difference.
okay, it's a temporary building,
Yes, it's vague.
trailer, kiosk, mobile food unit, or other structure based upon the following criteria. So it's a structure. So what's table, I wouldn't really consider a structure.
But what if it has wheels? What if she builds it in like a wagon? It has wheels, it's mobile.
I think that's a stretch.
Why don't you in section D stipulate a mobile food truck instead of
Yeah,
having up on top where it says a building trailer kiosk and then why don't you stipulate that it's a,
Well, I don't want a trailer or a kiosk there either,
yeah,
or a temporary building.
so why don't we put in there food truck? Make it a definite item.
So on number D, what we're talking about here is in a residential zone, do you want a temporary building, trailer, kiosk, mobile food unit, or any other structure there?
Maybe a mobile food unit, but not the other structures.
I'd go for
For
that.
how long?
I would go for that, 15 minutes. But they're gonna do that, they're gonna do it very often. I mean, it's just discouraging,
So you're now with 15 minutes?
Yeah, based on that particular interpretation. Just a food truck, but again, well, because of that, if I had a food truck, I have more things to do than spend 15 minutes at one place. Can't even start the cooker up.
So you're saying you do
I
want
think we should put
mobile?
it on there with what, knowing that that's not gonna ever be used. I mean, it's just,
But how would you like to be the neighbor if it does get used?
for 15 minutes.
Oh, for 15 minutes, I'm good with.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
In residential zones, a food truck can stay no longer than 15 minutes.
Correct.
Residential.
okay, so
Yes,
you're,
I'm with that.
so there's three of us on that. Food truck only.
Maybe you should just add something.
So,
And actually-
That this doesn't apply to Girl Scouts or little kids selling them.
Under 12, I agree. They're nonprofit,
Well, they
Girl
are
Scouts in
training.
the lemonade stand.
Right,
Children under
those are
12 should be
okay,
exempt.
those are okay, food trucks,
Do we need to have, do we really need to be that specific?
Apparently.
I would.
Okay,
I can pull a trailer.
specific. Specifically excludes,
Don't say food truck, say mobile food unit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mobile
mobile
food.
food.
I would,
That's what I got down
I would
for.
just put that there and give the benefit of the doubt that all of us are, know that that means it.
I mean, I really, it's, table is not any structure. As far as I'm concerned, you know, Girl Scout selling
I think
cookies and that type
Just
of
in
thing.
general, when you roll this out to everyone, just say this does not apply to little things.
Right,
They're trying to earn money to go to camp. They're not selling hats or belt buckles, or they're not making money. They're trying to get money to go to camps.
okay, well, we'll do a specifically excludes,
Not,
whatever. I don't like children, but,
Oh, it's not that.
I mean, okay, yeah, I know that one's gonna be used on you, but.
Yeah, plenty of
I don't
that.
like the definition of an age limit on it is the bottom line.
I'm sure that goes in our minutes.
But,
Hey, you don't like children?
Yep. I want that in the minutes.
yeah. I know. Anyways, what I think we should do is something about,
Nonprofit.
nonprofit.
I think it's better if we, under teenage,
12.
under 12 and under. Anything
Nonprofit.
operated.
Okay, we can just say 12 and under. All right. So are we all good with that? Are you still good with it?
Mobile food trucks, that's.
You're still good with it?
Same thing as that.
I'm good with it and David's not. Okay, we're going with that. Citing requirements. All right, here's the one that, there was a lot of discussion before on. Location within the hard surface area as versus asphalt or gravel.
I'm okay with the hard surface if it's on public property. I'm not okay with it on private property.
And this doesn't fall underneath the special events
Right.
issue either.
So that special event issue, they can have it on dirt or gravel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they fall under a different area.
Yeah.
So you're wanting to think that the food trucks or the mobile unit, food units. You want it on like the asphalt and concrete?
In public areas,
In public areas.
not like out at the corner.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
You know, he's got spots for two.
So these can also be for special event times, like going to Whoopi Beach. They can do that. They can put their
Yeah,
generator
that's
and all
under,
that.
that was under
Special,
section
Right,
A.
see,
Yeah.
so those are okay.
Yeah,
Right.
So there is no, okay, I think that's,
So, David,
Yeah, as long as it's on public right of way, private property, we don't really, shouldn't say what it's on. Whether it's hard surface or gravel or
Right.
dirt.
well, I think we should be able to say that it's a gravel. I don't think you want to have it, even if it's on private property, I don't think you want it in a mud hole.
No,
But the health department would also regulate that.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. As far as anything dripping out of it or anything like that. Okay, good. So location shall not be within a sidewalk. Assuming we're good with that, yeah,
I have a question about that one.
okay,
I noticed in another section, it talks about allowing some things on sidewalks as long as 36 inches are permitted. So should
in the
that,
special events section,
you know, I don't know exactly which number, but one of these down the line, number 11. Talks about signage as long as you keep 36 inches. And in this case, the same thing, if 36 inches is maintained, would a business be allowed to put a table out on the sidewalk, for instance?
Remember, this is for day in, day out use as compared to a special event.
I understand.
We're in that section.
There seems to be some confusion here. Because in 2A, it says, location shall not be within a sidewalk. And in number 11, which Mr. Ham just mentioned, it talks about a sign being placed on the right of way adjacent,
To the
not
side.
in the sidewalk.
Right,
in the right
adjacent,
of way.
yeah.
That's mostly for the sandwich boards that they used to have out in the middle of the side.
You don't want to put it for some.
Right.
Are you good with that? All right. Yes, okay, yes, thank you. Location shall not be within 20 feet of an intersection. That's the annual clearance. Good with that? Okay. You all right, David, with that? The location of any transient business shall not be within 10 feet of an interest of any permanent business unless the temporary structure is placed with the permission of the owner of that permanent business. We're all good with that or not? You're not, David, you?
We changed that because originally it didn't say
Right,
with the permission.
exactly,
Yeah,
right.
So we're using permission.
Mhm.
You okay with the permission?
Okay, good. Location of any transient business shall not be within 50 feet of an entrance of any competing permanent business.
Is that not covered by D already? Is that kind of redundant?
Not really. Because you could have two businesses very close to each other that serve the same thing, and one of them allows a food truck on his property. And it might be right next to the other one.
And they're talking about just one thing, one says competing business, and the other one is just a permanent business.
In other words, we're protecting somebody who's selling food.
Right.
No, yeah, and Carl's makes sense that they're not isolated.
Okay, so we're good with that, guys? See enough nods. Signing on a public property is permitted only during and as part of a permitted special event. Okay. So that means that during and as part of a permitted special event.
means no mobile food units on public right of way. Wouldn't that be easier to say?
Yeah, we've given allowances for use of public right of way earlier in the document.
Yeah. Okay.
What'd you say, is that good?
Yep. Got that. Okay, property owner authorization. Now, kind of different than the property owner as proof of owner's permission. Sure, we're okay with that. Lot standards, lot development standards for the underlying zone are met. For obvious reasons. Ingress, egress. Egress are adequate and do not raise safety concerns when the proposed use is combined with other uses on the site. So in other words, by adding a mobile food unit, all of a sudden it creates, there's not enough space to get out of the parking lot or something like that. I believe it's what we're getting at there.
Yeah.
Two was the citing requirements, and then two is also the property line.
Did I,
No, it's just the numbering down the side is all by one.
Oh, yeah, there's no one.
okay. So let's change the number back to that page.
Top one on that page should be 3.
Living requirement. The owner's authorization should be. Lot
Yeah,
standard
so we'll
for
just make sure the
egress
number is right. Okay. Visual clearance. Does not conflict with our visual clearance laws. Good on that?
Yeah.
Right, Carl? Parking. Efficient parking to accommodate the temporary use and other use is existing on the site. David, good? Okay, drive-through service. You shall not utilize drive-through service, only pedestrian walk-up allowed.
There is no really right of way anywhere here where you could use a drive up service on private property. Without the turning radius of 85 feet, so yeah. The coffee shop, yes, that's drive-through, but other than the coffee spot right there. There is no other place that has the 85-foot circumference for a turnaround except for by my house on 6th and Park. Where there might be just about 85 feet, but then where you put in the building on private property.
But also we don't want to have a drive-through.
Yeah, there's no room for a drive-through.
The
Even if we
beauty
had.
shop used to be a bank and you could have went around that, but it had no drive up, but you could have.
Mr. Ward?
Rob Ward, Lakeside. Just like to remind Commissioner Smith that this is about temporary uses, not permanent ones,
Well, it says drive-through services,
in a section regarding temporary uses.
and again, we shouldn't have even drive-through services. There is no
Temporary
turning,
uses.
temporary uses, because there's no turning
Right,
radius.
that's what we're talking about, yeah. Okay, so we're good on that. Off-site impacts. The use does not create adverse off-site impacts, including vehicle traffic, noise, odors, vibrations, glare, lights that affect the adjoining uses in a manner in which other uses are allowed outright in the district, do not affect the adjoining uses. We're good with that? Kind of almost a disclaimer, Adam?
Am I the only, almost that same wordage is used earlier in the document, and it seems really odd and awkward to me. Am I the only one that reads that really funny, that last part of that?
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay,
We don't want to have any adverse impacts. What do you guys think? Are you okay with it?
Well, then the leases. I mean, I've seen this kind of.
like the way it's worded, okay, that's all I'm getting at, I just.
You know, we do want to make sure we're covering the essence of everything. Okay, utilities. The use of adequately served by sewer and septic, water and electricity as applicable. Again, obviously, if it's the gray water situation is, if that's what the food truck is using, that's what it is. Utilities can be connected temporarily to such service without the placement of lines, wires, pipes, hoses, similar temporary utility connections and infrastructure across the sidewalk or similar designated pedestrian walkways. And obviously, that's a big liability issue that we don't want to get into. Then finally, this is the one that is yellowed. The use of internal combustion engines, electrical generators is not permitted. Now, remember, this is talking about day in, day out usage. This is not talking about special events.
No, you're talking about a temporary, about a food truck or a mobile unit,
Right,
something like that.
not a Wolfie Beach situation.
Yeah, right, with the mobile. I disagree with it. I think, internal engines should be allowed, but I think there should be a decibel limit on, for nuisance. And all your new generators that come out are pretty quiet anyways right now. But there should be, you should be able to find a standard someplace that says, you know, a noise limit for that type of unit. And I think that's what this needs to be in there.
The only problem is how are we going to measure it?
Well, you can't do it unless somebody complains. I mean, we don't have enforcement around here anyways. So it would be, it would be something that we could work towards, but you wouldn't actually probably do anything unless somebody complained about it.
So what about the concerns with fire? The safety concerns? You have a gasoline engine,
I don't know, are they all?
They're 10 feet away.
right?
Health authority makes them 10 feet away. Generators are part of a mobile food unit. Read the health authority's thing. They are allowed generators. They're 5 to 10 feet away. There is no fire hazard. Generators are pretty safe. And unless you're in, let's say, the food court at North Bend, well then, yeah, no generators. Could you have what, 5, 6 food trucks there? So that would be a little noisy, but if you're having special events, qualifies, they're good. They should be able to have a generator, even permanent place. If I put one across the street over here for that place is for sale, I should be able to have a generator there. That's what they're made for.
So do you want generators all
Scratch.
over the city?
I think
I
that
mean,
the use of internal combustion engines should be scratched.
so you're saying it shouldn't be there?
It shouldn't be there. For a
That's
mobile
not-
food unit, for
temporary,
a temporary,
you're talking about
yeah,
temporary.
for even a special event, that would be temporary. So you're saying every,
For 30 days, 60 days.
even permanent, he might have a generator, but he's plugged into power out there. If he was out there on his own, he'd probably have a generator if he wasn't plugged into power.
The thing is as we get on into this, it talks about permanency after so many days. Once it gets off, after it goes from a mobile part-timer, from a nomad to an area that is gonna be permanent, that then is gonna require
The
more
health
hookups.
authority discussed that and
Right.
in detail. As long as they're self-contained, they don't need to be hooked up to power. City power, water, or sewer, as long as they're self-contained. Permanent.
Adam,
And along the same lines that Carl was mentioning, you know, we might not be able to put a specific number on it as far as decibel, because that's hard to measure. But we could certainly make some sort of verbiage that says a quiet or a silent running, or, you know what I mean, that type of generator to distinguish between your old thumper and what most people, if you went out and bought one today. And a lot of RVs have them built right into the unit, and you don't even know it's there and running.
But those are temporary use when they're going.
well, if they're in the RV unit, they're part of the RV unit. Is the bottom line there. So, and I guess here's my concern with the generators. Do we want to have generators on our city streets around by where the businesses are? And does that portray a good image for the city?
Well, where are you putting the mobile food? You're not putting them in residential, so you're putting them in commercial. Marine commercial or general commercial,
So that guy can fire it up for 15.
or are you talking special events? Special events,
Special events, I'm not concerned with.
okay, permanent. Let's say, again, permanent, you have one across the street over here, he's permanent, he's not hooking to power, so he has a permanent generator.
Right, do you want to have that in the city?
Again, how much property are we talking about to have it in the city? You're talking less than 2 blocks. So think realistically, where can we put mobile food units? I see 1, 2, maybe 3 spots in our town that we could actually put a mobile food unit from the tracks this way. So 3 generators in our town wouldn't be that big of a deal.
But not all mobile food units require a generator.
No, they don't.
Right.
But we're talking about generators is not permitted, so if they need one, they should be able to have one permanently if they're there and they don't need our power.
Specifically if it's not super loud.
I go with the idea that they're permitted on the temporary use, basically, and you were saying we've already passed that, but to have that as a permanent, and we're talking about how long is permanent on a food truck nowadays.
We're saying
90
anything
days.
45 days.
So 45 days
So you have a
straight,
generator out there for
45 days staying open,
Yeah.
45 days generator.
Noisy or not, it puts up fumes too.
Alan, I have a question. You had, and I'm no there, Mr. Grover, but Alan, you had, well, are you prior to the gentleman who had that food truck and
Paul. So yes,
Thanks, Paul.
the building was where the Mancheria was, and they had a generator on them.
all the time?
They did.
So they had no
Was it
other.
built in? It was built
I believe
into,
it was built into the
Yeah.
unit.
So they turned it off,
If it's
they turned it
built in.
off during the time they did.
Right, and that
modern
is,
homes.
if
have a
it's
built-in.
built in, it's not what I was considering as a generator. I'm talking about a generator that's off the truck.
Then we should probably make that clear in verbiage.
Not in Lakeside, it gets stolen.
That would be one way to solve the problem.
There you go.
So just
Buy
steal.
one of them that's stolen.
So are we okay with that, guys?
Especially if we can put, like what you just said, we need to specify then if it's connected or attached,
built-in
it's
unit.
different.
Contained within the mobile food unit.
Yeah, that makes
Attached.
sense.
So does
That
that
makes
make
sense.
sense? it,
I can probably live with that.
What you would need is one that runs off of batteries.
Solar
You're
batteries.
not gonna make my car.
Not.
So they strap it to the tongue of their trailer and that's considered,
No. They're typically built in, right?
well, that could be built in. They could say, hey, put a box over it, build it on the tongue of their trailer, and that's built in.
As long as the health authority is fine with it. Are we good with that compromise? I mean,
I don't like it's not permitted at all. It says the use of internal combustion engine electrical generator does not permitted. It just, that's what a food truck has. They have a generator.
that's more of the old school, newer ones.
Old school, whether they have it built into their trailer or it's 5 to 10 feet away, they should be allowed to have a generator.
Okay, well, so you two are with generator wherever. And Randy,
I agree with this right here. Don't permit it.
and Randy's no permit. I'm okay with it being on the, contained within the food truck. So where are we gonna, how are we gonna resolve this?
Contained within the food truck, fine. I just.
Three or four contained within the
If they
food truck.
need it, they need it.
Okay, contained within the food truck, not external in any form or shape.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Maintenance of walkways. Use on or adjacent to a sidewalk or designated pedestrian way shall be maintained at all times with a minimum unobstructed pedestrian passage area of 36 inches and avoid creating safety hazards for pedestrians and vehicles. Adam?
And this is where I may have mentioned 11 earlier, but I guess 10 is where I thought maybe that conflicts with 2B. Under sitting requirements, where it says it can't be on the sidewalk at all. And then here it says it can be on the sidewalk as long as you maintain pedestrian passage of 36 inches.
Use on or adjacent to the sidewalk or other designated pedestrian ways. In other words, we're saying shall be maintained at all times, a minimum of unobstructed, and we're just talking about permanent business. A minimum of unobstructed pedestrian passage area of 36 inches. And avoid creating safety hazards for pedestrians. and vehicles.
So if a shoe store downtown wanted to put a table out on the side, out in front of their business, sell some shoes on it or display some shoes. If 36 inches in front of it are maintained clear, then that table, kiosk, whatever would be okay or no?
On non-public property. In other words, you're taking an
You
item
leave 36
and put it out
inches
on-
for
No,
that.
you just.
I'm not arguing that. I believe that we should always leave 36 inches. What I'm saying is potentially there's room to allow a kiosk, a table of things, whatever, and still maintain that 30. It might be 50 inches wide or 60 inches wide. And you
Is
can
it
put a
on your
table that's 30
property?
inches
It's on
wide.
your property.
Long as it's
So
not- long as it's-
unobstructed, meaning that people aren't standing in front of the table. Within that 36 inches, it's gotta be completely clear.
I faced that many times on my my several stores I've had, where I've had my sidewalks and I'm told by the, we had law enforcement more there than here. And regulations by the city to, as long as it's on my property, here's the sidewalk and my table's right here. On there, even if I'm 1/20th of an inch past, someone walks in front of it, I'm still okay. The moment I touch that in any shape or form, then I'm gone against the code. And I'll be asked to remove that. So I mean, as long as it's on the private property in which the person's on, I think it's fine.
So we're good with number, 10. I'm good with it. Okay. Number 11, unattached signage. One sandwich board type of sign may be placed in the right of way adjacent to the use, subject to, again, 36 inches of pedestrian passage, clearance indicated above.
Library uses a pole flag. So why can't they use a pole flag?
What do you mean the full flag?
Pole flag. Lakeside Vintage, the library has a flag sign out there.
Right, that's part of our signage.
Okay, but here you're saying we can
Library.
only have,
Okay,
An
the
A-frame.
library is permanent.
still can go in the ground, they pull it out, they pull the flag out.
Okay,
They don't pull out the library.
yeah.
No, I'm saying they pull the flag out,
Right.
correct? So can't they use a pole flag?
So the business is permanent.
Man. You're saying just an A typical frame board, sandwich board for their signs.
So we're talking about structures that are temporary.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the library, which is a permanent structure.
Okay,
That falls underneath the signage.
I think what he's saying is the verbiage might be restricting it to a specific type of sign.
yeah,
Not where or what business, that they might
Yeah,
use to have a
exactly.
non-A-frame type. sign.
That's exactly what it's doing.
yes, so why can't we use them as a pole flag? Why can't they use a pole flag for, a coffee spot? Or a mobile food unit?
I think
They use a flagpole.
is probably good enough.
A-frame is basically built strictly for mobile operation.
Right.
You pick it up and you put it in. The flags are for permanent because it advertises all the time inside the store. On a permanent, that's how they used them.
Really, because you have right now, you have the signage for the elections.
But the coffee shop is there all the time. It's a permanent building.
I've seen food trucks that travel, because I do lots of events, and they have pool signs, they have a temporary base that they can stick in. At the end of the day, they put the flag on the side of the trailer and they drive on.
Right.
So in that instance, would they be allowed to use that, or are they just restricted to an A-frame sign? Could it be just some kind of temporary sign that doesn't obstruct the sidewalk?
Rob?
You might consider allowing one sign, not specifying
Yeah.
what type it is, and just set a maximum size.
That doesn't obstruct the sidewalk or the driving, or,
Cause I see people that take that, put 20 signs.
that's why we need to limit that.
So why don't you say one sign? What size?
Whatever the, up to the 36 inch. Up to a 36 inch pedestrian. Not 36,
No.
up to a,
Flagpoles are
up
6
to a,
feet.
what is the board?
Adam, what's the,
We're talking about square foot area. So A-frame board covers
It might be,
2 by 30.
3 feet by 3 feet max for an A-frame, and that would be 9 square feet on each side. So that's 18 square feet. Feather, what you're talking about in the industry are called feather flags, the ones on the poles that go
Yeah.
up like that. They might be maximum 2 feet wide, and they go up to, you can get them 10 or 12 feet long.
We don't.
You know what I mean? So that might be, a 12-foot one would be, again, 24 square feet. So it's
Okay,
similar to
so
what an
a
A-frame would be.
regular sign is typically 2 by 4.
why don't we just say, as long as it doesn't infect the visual clearance,
Or the pedestrian. right?
or the pedestrian walkway, a feather pole is what you called it.
I mean, I feel like we could come up with a number though, if it was
So
under
this
30
is my
square feet or
concern.
something, or under 20 square
We're
feet.
gonna have a bunch of signs
That's
around.
big.
Is this temporary or permanent again?
Yeah, they're showing.
Temporary. But that's what I mean.
But
Remember,
temporary, they're temporary.
Or it's not gonna
It's
be
for
forever.
a special events. It's temporary. It's not permanent. You just said it's temporary.
it's not for a special event.
Well, it's
It's for
temporary.
somebody who's
Or we could
driving
say
a truck around.
one sandwich board or two flags.
No,
Just go
this is-
one sign
this
for
is not
business.
one
sign.
One sign for
Okay.
business.
With a max
One
size
size
Or
of
something.
This is what I suggest, one sign, 15 square.
15 would be,
2 times 7, 3
yeah, I
times
mean,
5.
You can do a 2x6. Right, 2 feet by 6.
that's
That's
12 on
12.
the side of an
Or-
A-frame though.
Just
You have to be high.
a black. One side.
But an A-frame by definition is 2 sides.
I know, but I'm
Well,
just saying, for the exercise, they frame
A
is
sign
not
for
gonna be
temporary
overflow.
business.
Right. Okay, so 15 feet, 15 square, one sign, 15 square feet.
It
Not
doesn't
not
obstruct.
affecting sidewalk or visual, well, visual clearance is covered. 15 square feet.
Hey, are you talking about this area or total?
We're saying
Totally.
this
Usually measured
way,
in the,
this way,
Oh, okay.
this way,
Right.
whatever way you want to
15
go.
square feet.
We're being flexible here. We're allowing for creativity.
I love creativity.
Precedent of special events. Should the time and location approved for a temporary structure intersect with the time and location of the approved permanent special event, the use or structure must vacate the area, subject to the event permit. I think we're all good with that. Right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah. Alcohol.
Yeah.
Sale and consumption of alcohol shall not be permitted at the location of a temporary use or transient business. Except in instances where such has been specifically approved as an aspect of a special event. Which we don't need.
Fall into our city manager determined.
Well, it's just a special event. So essentially, we're saying that a temporary or transient business cannot serve.
Right, so we just had one approved, last week, right?
Yep.
It's a transient business, it was, well, it became a permanent business. But she had a mobile unit that sold with alcohol.
and she's licensed by the OLCC and the health department and all those things that have approved that temporary use as long as the city where they're gonna set up is okay with it as well.
And I believe the city manager, went through that application as well.
County sheriff and the city manager, both county sheriff and the city manager.
So if it's
Okay,
gonna-
Well, that was a special event.
that's a special event.
It was a special event.
Oh,
No,
no, there wasn't 150 people there and there was
Well,
no
it
special
doesn't have
event.
to be-
Yeah,
That's just
so
on
we
private
got
property.
also,
I didn't see
It's
the
a special
application, so I
event.
don't know how the application was written, that's, I didn't.
Well, then that's that yellow where the city manager could say, except in instances where such has been specifically approved as an aspect of a special event permit application.
Did you get a special event?
No,
So that-
Okay, so we just have to retro. And from now on, you just have to do this.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna slap you for $1,000. Okay, so you're gonna keep that. I'm gonna donate that to your. So don't talk about it anymore.
so. I guess the question here is, do we want alcohol to be served for temporary businesses? I say no.
I say yes, because it's temporary and they're
Alcohol.
covered.
to-
They've already been covered by
to-
that.
to-
health authority.
to-
Point of order, I was
You don't have-
talking, please.
You don't have a very,
Point of order, thank you. Alcohol's already conserved, taken care of by the health authority. They're already regulated.
Cover the city.
No, it's OLCC.
Like he said, that the permit was was okay as long as it's okay with the city.
Yeah. So the
Right.
city has to approve it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just read it,
Getting
that
a
the city,
City permitted.
yeah, but permitted is passed. I'm talking about now in the future.
You have a comment?
Yeah, and it's sort of in the form of a question. How would you expect to have any kind of event serve alcohol that doesn't regularly serve alcohol if you don't have a transit business come into your town to serve it?
That would be a special event.
Well,
Right there.
Right, special event.
but he didn't have 150 people there. If you're defining a special event requires 150. I mean, it's gonna be a,
You don't have to have 150 people. for a
We're
special
showing
event.
up.
It does, it says it. 150 people.
On
There you
public
go.
property.
I mean,
Well, wait a minute, no, on here, we said that G stayed. Oh, alcohol will be served on the property, so that's the definition of a special event.
A gathering of 150 or more people located in whole or part on public property,
Oh,
which
that's
you
on
said,
public property.
which you also said, which is on private property, because that's under A. Chairman, you said
Okay.
public or private is a special event,
okay,
so.
well,
you
my
can't have
question
it both.
is,
Right.
how can it be anything but a transient business that you invite to your business for a soft opening celebration?
Because our special events.
Because he doesn't normally serve alcohol at his place, or at least he hasn't invited me.
That's what bothers me.
So-
I don't get it.
So how does this work? Because if you have an off-premise bar, it has to be under a permanent permit, like the Lake Shore Lodge. You can't just get a permit to run all over the country with a bar.
They have one.
Yeah.
That's what they have.
They
That's
have it.
exactly what they had. And experience, which is why I went to the county sheriff's office personally and had a conversation with him before I signed off on it.
They shouldn't allow.
Wow. Actually, I asked him whether or not I should sign it, and he took it out of my hand and he signed it. That's what happened.
If I may, when this was drafted, it was prior to the changes that you all recommended this evening for what requires a
Right,
special
that's
event
where it's
permit.
throwing this whole thing
And
off.
so, his soft opening, had it taken place with the draft you started from tonight, his soft opening would have required a special event permit. Because he would have been selling something that's outside his normal business.
Right. But where we're at right now with what we defined as special event would be that you can't, you wouldn't be able to serve alcohol for anything except for 150 people type thing.
No.
But we're also saying,
Business.
but we're also saying, I think, is that you can't have a transient business selling alcohol.
Right,
And I don't think that's what we want to say.
right, exactly.
So I'm saying I'm suggesting that you should not disallow a transient business to serve alcohol.
Yeah, I see the point.
And also, 150 people says that if you have 150 people, you have to have a special event. It doesn't say that a special event can't be held with less people.
Right. So on this transient alcohol thing, is there a certification in your truck or anything like that, or
So it's not mine, it was a
whoever's it is?
business that I had hired or
Yeah.
had come to do that. She had multiple different licenses. She had something, a permit from the OCC, I guess.
Right,
She submitted an application here with Lakeside. And she has her health card or health permit. She had several inspections and
Yeah.
licenses visible in her.
so it was visible.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a criteria or things that when you had the alcohol was a location where they could drink it?
Yes, they designated, the parking lot area, so no alcohol beverages could leave the parking lot area. They also required, the placement
That's
for
good.
mobile
That's-
units,
that's
where it's gonna be on the.
I like that idea.
Now, was that Rick's doing, or was that the licenses?
I believe that's the OCC, but I'm not positive on that one. That's
Okay, yeah, I mean, if it's,
Rick asked some particular questions because Rick had never heard of the transient. And Rick held on to the application until he had a visit with the county sheriff.
Did you talk to the OLCC at all about that?
I did not. I figured if the sheriff was gonna sign it for me, I was,
the sheriff
Okay.
probably talked to us.
And see, we only have one liquor store in this county. There's a reason for that. You can only have one liquor store per capita. There's so many people, residents. And so you can't put in 3 or 4 or 2 or 3. So we only have one. So that's how that works with a transient.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So she has a Myrtlewood factory or Myrtle Beach factory, I'm sorry, whatever that is, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
She's there. Right.
And these are so random. These are not like
Every day.
events every
Apparently
weekend,
they're not.
you know.
well, I'm,
Well, BYOB.
my concern is somebody walking out in the street and getting hit by a car.
That could happen at any bar in town, though.
Yeah.
But
Then that
the,
happened at the Osprey.
but the other bars are regulated, but now you're saying that the temporary is also
Saying
regulated.
she is.
She is regulated.
Yeah.
Temporary is regulated.
That kind of changes the story, doesn't it? With that. That's bizarre.
That business in particular is probably more regulated than any business in town because it will be the health department, OLCC, city of
Yeah,
Lakeside,
it's
the
dangerous.
property owner. You know what I mean? Everybody along the way has looked at it and said, had an opportunity to be like, no.
But what do you say, Randy?
Shall be permitted at the location of a temporary use or transit. Shall be permitted.
No,
Provided that they have all the licenses.
All their,
Shall not be permitted except for the instances where it has been specifically approved by the manager, city manager.
Yeah, I think that states, it sounds like they have to go.
city.
And get
Carl had it right.
permission from the city.
Yeah, then they're covered, yeah.
so Carl had some language for us.
Carl,
I said, the sale and consumption of alcohol shall not be permitted at the location of a temporary use or transient business, except in the instances where such has been specifically approved by the city manager.
that puts it on you.
It does. Which is why I went to go see the sheriff.
So that's what I think we should just do then.
I would
Uh,
have.
Mr. Ward, Rob?
Don't want to complicate things unnecessarily, but here I go. If you word it that way, without any standards for approval, you've given your city manager the discretionary authority to decide just because he feels like it, to deny someone the opportunity to open business here.
Okay, so someplace in there, you gotta specify. that
So-
it's a-
Providing it meets state standards
Yeah,
or OCC,
OLCC.
yeah,
Doesn't
OCC.
number 19 cover that, saying the applicant must.
We're-
yes,
So
it
we're gonna
does.
go ahead, so that's the language we want to use, Rich. Okay, so let's move on to number 16, sound application. Yeah. Amplification, no amplification is shall be permitted by the transient business. A music player is acceptable as long as the sound does not extend beyond the immediate vicinity of the transient business and does not generate complaints from neighboring businesses, customers, or community members. I'm good with that. You good with it?
Yes.
Okay. Building codes. The structure complies with the applicable building codes.
A mobile food unit already complies with the health authority and the Department of Vehicle Code, so why are we even bothering with that?
Mr. Ward?
Because this section of code is not for mobile food units. It's for temporary uses,
Yep.
some of which are constructed structures, which have to comply with the building.
Right. So you guys good with that? Duration of placement of temporary structure. Except where specified, specifically authorized by the city administrator, the length of time that the temporary structure may remain on site shall not exceed 3 consecutive months or a total of 6 months in 1 calendar year.
This says 3 consecutive months, and in earlier places it says 45 days. Is that
For this, we're going with 3 consecutive months. All right.
This section is for the placement of temporary structures. The 45 days is for the operation of a transient business on one location. They're 2 different things.
A mobile food unit is not a structure. Are we good with that? Carl.
18 and
wanted
23
that
kind of work
Licensing.
against each other.
The application has obtained and will maintain all required licenses and permits, including a Lakeside business license and the right-of-way use permit as applicable.
Now, that is not current policy or practice, as I understand it. I can be all wet here, but my understanding is that when we have special events or temporary things going on, we have not done the business license routine.
That is wrong.
This section of code does not apply to special events.
Okay? Well, we're talking about temporary,
Right.
and
3 months.
the soft opening was or was not a special event.
Apparently it wasn't.
And
I mean,
we did
it's
not
20
require,
on a regular business.
we did not require a business license from that transit alcohol provider.
And in the past, we would have. Under our current code, we should.
Perhaps.
So are we going to enforce that as from here on?
All the other cities do.
Yes.
I think we should
I think they
get
should have a
ourselves
business.
cleaned
license.
off, let's go and do this.
That's fine.
I agree, I think we should do that.
Okay, you were okay with that, Carl? Okay. Number 20, litter cleanup. The applicant of any temporary use shall keep the area within 25 feet of the temporary use clean and free of litter and dispose of the litter in their own contained receptacle. Use of city trash receptacles for trash from temporary uses is prohibited. Pretty common, straightforward to me, yeah. All right,
I have a question.
sure.
So Adam, you being one of the many involvers in these events that we've had in the past. I think I've noticed you a lot with a bag and picking up trash. Was I wrong? Was my eyeballs direct me wrong? You look like the same person.
You're very right.
So thank you for that. If there's any questions that, or any thoughts that could help expedite in the future, please let us know on how we could be easier handled and things of that nature.
As far as litter goes, we generally get, the less sanitation is always willing to donate as many trash cans and dumpsters as we needed. And, our crew, as we clean up, are always just Pick up our stuff. Yeah.
Okay, visual appearance of the street. All items visible from the street shall be kept in good repair and be maintained in a safe and clean condition. Straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay. Fire inspection. Any temporary use involving flammable materials or fuels shall pass a fire safety inspection, or the fire department shall indicate that no such inspection is required.
Would that be also involved with, the generators and things of that nature, if it's on the outside? Police department, fire department check all that kind of stuff anyway? Have they come through and,
In the past, we've reached out to the fire department on things like this, and they're generally like,
okay,
But now they'll officially have to say, we're just alone.
well, that's up to them. I
Right,
mean,
exactly.
we don't dictate what they do, so it's hard to say.
So we're okay with that? All right, number 23. Why don't you go ahead and read that one, Carl? I'm losing
Okay.
my voice.
Conversation of transit business to a conversion of transient business to permanent business. The transient business that occupies a single location for a period in excess of 45 days is considered to be permanent. Any transient business which becomes permanent must be A, permanently connected to sewer, water, power as applicable. B, illuminated with downcast shielded lighting when operating during hours of darkness. And C, considered as a new commercial development and such to all requirements of a new commercial development.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That's just simply, hey, if you want to be permanent, be permanent.
So it states 45 consecutive days, correct? And so if
Yeah,
they're,
45
if they leave for a weekend or whatnot, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
then that would
Obviously,
start all
Starts over.
Right.
No duration for a whole.
Right.
year.
We just want to avoid somebody from putting up like a food truck as a permanent business.
without being paying for their services?
So you guys good with 23?
And I'm sorry, I just want to be clear, is that effective on private and public property or?
You wouldn't have anything on public property for that long.
I agree, I just.
Okay, well, what about the food truck or the mobile food unit out there on the 101? He's permanent, private property.
Private property.
He's hooked to a 20-gallon extra gray tank because he doesn't have any black water. Does not connect it to water or sewer, but so does he need to connect to that? I mean, he's connected to power, but he holds his own, he takes care of his own water. And
Pull it out.
You're discussing a potential code this evening. And even if some version of it does get passed by the council and enacted, it doesn't take effect retroactively. It only goes forward.
Right.
So,
thank you, Mr. Obvious.
so the person who is operating the mobile food unit you're discussing would then have to make a personal choice. Do I want to move this thing every 45 days? Or do I want to bring it into compliance with the new codes? That's up to them.
We don't want to set up situations where people are circumventing our laws by, doing this.
Are they connected to the sewer there, or is that the septic?
No,
Evidently not.
Well, neither is the copies.
Adam?
We discussed this quite a bit in the previous meetings and seemed as if everybody in the room agreed that as long as they are willing to pull out within 45 days, we were okay with it.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty
Yeah.
cut and dry, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? The taco truck is in the road, probably ought to pull out every once in a while.
Yeah. Are you guys okay with that? Randy? Yeah. David, are you still not okay with it?
I'm okay now. It's the
Okay.
next one.
All right, the last one, appeals. Appeals to deny or imposition of conditions of youth regarding an application for a temporary building kiosk, trailer, mobile food unit, or other structure shall be made to the city council or the planning commission.
Is it planning commission and the city council?
No, you get a pick.
What is the decision?
I'm saying the planning commission because this is their expertise. Yes.
It's like a youth permit or anything else. That would be good.
Well, a lot of these, yeah, like a conditional use. permit. Okay,
Was there some point earlier where the appeal was given to city council on number 11?
special events or city council.
Okay.
All right, so we just completed everything. Do we want to have another review of this before Rick pulls the trigger? Or because he has to get in touch with DLCD with the staff report for something that's pretty much ready to go for a public hearing? Or do we want to just have them make all the changes and one more time, just quickly say, yeah, this is what we were talking about?
Where are we allowing permanent mobile food units?
What are we talking about here?
Well, where are you gonna allow them?
I don't get your question.
Permanent mobile food unit, that's what we're talking about, right?
Rob,
The short answer is under this code proposal, a permanent mobile food unit is not allowed anywhere. It has to move at least once every 45 days.
Right.
Or it has to become something permanent.
so that's the decision before us.
Well, I think
Do you think
I
we
think we have
covered
to
it as
go-
good as we can?
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think we have to, make sure all the changes that we wanted were made properly, not, you know.
I'm taken.
You know, errors are made, you know, and things get confused in the, tape recording and all that. I think we gotta go through it one more time.
Okay.
After the changes are made.
Yeah, I'm good with that. What do you think, Randy?
I like it the way it is. That's tougher to know these things like
Well,
it is.
Do you want to check up on Rick?
Okay.
Yes, I'll check up on Rick.
Okay, then there's the decision. All right, good. Well, very good. Thank you, everybody. There's a lot of stuff to go through. Let's move on to the next item. Set the agenda for April Planning Commission. Yeah, I know one item on there. Check Rick's work.
Yes.
Is there any other events going on?
I plan to post a vacancy on the planning commission. And I would hope to have on the council, on your planning commission agenda for your April meeting, your interview or whatever it is that your process is with candidate or candidates as it relates to planning commission vacancies at your April meeting, because they can still make on the agenda of the April council meeting, if
Yeah.
whatever your.
Exactly, so you can fill seats.
So I hope to have that on your agenda in April as well.
One.
I do too.
I hope, yes.
Well, we have 9 candidates running for 4 offices, so I already know there's 5 that I'll be approaching soon on March 13th. So
The planning
Good,
commission,
good resource, right? Good recruiting technique.
I've been keeping the seat warm for you, Mayor.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll put
Eric.
my hat back in the ring, huh?
Yeah, doesn't this invigorate you?
No,
do you get excited?
so excited. I'm gonna go home and take a blood pressure pill.
Okay,
Keep working on the planning commission. We have good crew. Professional ethics. It's wonderful. We got a lot done.
Yeah, we did. I mean, that whole code revamp was not easy business.
And the zoning maps,
And zoning maps,
that was a problem, yeah.
exactly. So candidates and just a quick look at the review. That should be probably pretty good because we'll have maybe 9 candidates in here.
And you might
And
have.
you guys will be busy all night.
I have a question for you, city manager.
In the packet.
Yeah,
How long is
Well,
the,
you have to ask the chair, get recognized by the chair. I'm sorry.
what's that?
I need to ask our city manager a question. Is that okay?
Sure.
How long is it for our planning chair seat? Do they usually sit? Don't we have a rule or anything? 3 years, 2 years?
The ordinance says, and this is from memory, that when you elect a chair and a vice chair, they serve for the full term of their term in that position.
Okay.
Which I have never seen that kind of language before, but
I thought it was-
your code is a little bit different,
Oh, is it?
but
They just go 4 years?
usually they go an annual election.
I go up.
So it's 4
Well,
years unless.
you have a different planning commission typically every other year. So usually it's either every other year because you have a new commission. Or it is every year just because you do it the first of the year.
Yeah.
But here they do it for when you get elected chair, you serve the length of your term. And you have 4-year terms.
Yeah.
So if you got elected the first year that you were on, or the first year of your second term, you serve the full term.
Unless I say I'm sick.
I don't remember reading that part of the code.
I think I saw it. in there.
I don't remember reading that part of the code.
Yeah,
I thought it was 2 years.
Chair and the vice chair to serve for the full term of the commissioner is subject to reaffirmation vote once a year.
Exactly.
Exactly. The commission shall elect from its voting membership a chairperson and vice chairperson to serve for the remainder of their full term,
Correct.
subject to annual ratification of the commission.
Right. So they had.
So your question, did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, because I've read it was 2 years from in the LOC. And
Well,
so
that may be,
I was just curious.
and that makes sense because
I have-
your council, your planning commission changes every 2 years.
Yeah.
But your code says they serve for their full term. So I didn't say anything in here about unless you get sick of it. Sorry, you have to change the code.
Oh, okay, unless they get sick of me.
So are there term limits on there?
Okay, so,
Running.
any other staff comments? Of commissioners or anything like that? All right, so it is now late. It's 9 o'clock and I'm gonna go ahead and close the planning commission meeting.
Thank you folks for coming and thank you online since we passed stuff.